Hello, everyone, and welcome to Weekly Manga Recap here on May the 1st of 2024. It is I, Nick, and it is she, Quinn.
Hello.
I don't know why I said your name like that.
It was an intro, that's all we needed with just, a little zazz. You put a little pepper on that one.
A little something.
Yeah. You put a little spice on it. Look, the important thing is this is a huge week of manga, so you wanted to come in with a lot of energy right from the get-go.
Yeah, you know what they say? Whenever you're running a marathon, run as fast as you can right from the very beginning. Conserve no energy, because that way you start faster, you finish faster, you cover more distance.
Yeah, you're at the end so much faster. You're so much closer to the end than you would have been at the beginning. So that's, yeah. I ran some marathons back in my day, so that is a lesson I took to heart. Just go out as fast as and kneecap the people around you. They're your competitors. Just like, even if they're not in the same like age division or anything as you, just really trip them up, like really make them feel it.
I do remember this like 90s video game. It was like a Sega game of some kind where you rode a motorcycle, and one of the big aspects of it was beating up the riders that were around you, and you could get like a club power up to attack them and stuff.
That's how most races should be. And will be in the fictional sort of Tron / Mad Max-esque world I envision for the future.
Absolutely.
Where all sports are now 1,000% more dangerous for our amusement.
So
imagine how much more exciting golf would be, Nick, if you have to regularly defeat people to get your shot off. Like you don't have time. You don't have time to like aim your shot up. You're like you run up to the tee. You just immediately hit it because like 3 people are about to jump you.
I think that there's a video game like that.
Probably it was probably Outlaw Golf.
I don't know enough about video games to identify anything, but yeah.
I truly don't know, but
the more obscure it is, the better chance I have of recognizing it. It's like Red Dead. See, I can't even say it. Red Dead
Redemption.
Racer.
Oh
yeah, no, Red Dead Rascal. Don't know it.
Red Dead Rascal.
Red Dead Rascal. Everyone knows Red Dead Rascal. It's where you're a rascal, a rapscallion. Red Dead Rapscallion is the sequel, though.
Are you gaslighting me?
I'm attempting to.
Okay, I searched this and all I got was Red Dead Redemption 2 Little Rascals. Like someone made a Little Rascals parody in Red Dead Redemption 2. I was like, I've never heard of it. Like, was Nick the only one to play this game?
The Little Rascals, that old TV series where it's set in the Old West and they murder each other for horses. I don't know.
I mean, from what I understand, that's pretty much how it goes. And then your horse's balls shrink depending on the weather, which was an important factor they needed to add into the game that demanded more crunch of its workers.
This sounds like you're gaslighting.
That is not. That is an element, I believe, of the game and part of like the realistic tone they were going for. That like your horse's testicles will shrink if you go into like the cold weather environment. Maybe that was an exaggeration I heard at some point, but
fuck, this is real. What the fuck?
It's for the realism, Nick. Imagine how fucking like torn out of this video game space you'd be if you're like riding around as a cowboy and you ride up into the cold frontiers, you get yourself off your horse, you're looking at this like mountain landscape, maybe like a forest in front of you, just killed like a bear or something like that, and you sit to like awe at nature's beauty and you're like, hold on a moment, are my horse's testicles not descending back into its body? And then immediately you're out of it. Suddenly you're like, I guess I'm just back in my real world. I guess life doesn't fucking matter. There's no true art anymore.
I've had some manner of curiosity about the Red Dead series because there's some aspects of it that seem like, oh, might be fun to fuck around in. I don't know if I have ever had a weirder thing kill my interest in a video game before than this. The fact that you put the effort into such a stupid aspect of the game makes me go, no, I don't care anymore.
There's a lot of work put into making the game feel as realistic as possible that I'm like, I don't know if that many people cared about this. And the people that really do, I don't know if you want them as your customers. Like, I don't know the person who's just like, skinning an animal takes too long. In actual situation, it would take much longer and be far more bloody and gruesome. It's just like, well, I don't know what to tell you.
But those horses' balls.
Well, yeah, as I said, sometimes we create art. The horse balls in Red Dead 2 getting shorter, and the video game that trains you to be a ninja in Samurai 8. Those are the two best applications of video games I've ever seen.
Speaking of horses' balls shrinking, what's not shrinking is the amount of manga we have to cover today.
No.
There are like 15 series we have to cover, and some of them have 2 chapters this week. So let's do it. I think
I might even be missing one. I'll be honest. We'll find out in the moment.
I might be missing something, but we'll see. My Hero Academia, chapter number 421. Last time the portals opened up, the big portals in Avengers Endgame scene happened.
That's the Avengers
and other
scene.
Sound cues. Yeah, yes, it is. And all of the heroes come out, not just like heroes, students. Gentle is in this crowd of people.
Oh, is he? I didn't see that.
He's in the back. He's actually kind of floating up.
Above
I
see him. There. Yeah. I saw Gang Orca and immediately just felt so relieved and just kind of skipped to the next page. I was like, the guy I need's here.
And we get one of those things that's nice to see in when a group of people show up, where you get a whole bunch of their reactions to the situation. Most of them just kind of on the same page, like, we've come really long ways, but we're all here. We're gonna do our best in order to pull this out and win. It's also nice establishing, who all from Class 1A is actually here, because as we have established, some of them were just not doing very well.
Some of them are dying. So
like Ida's engine legs are exploded. Ochako is bleeding out and is being rushed to a hospital, etc. But a lot of them, in particular, a lot of the less important ones, historically speaking, are there, all staring down, all for one, along with Deku. And he refers to them as an array of dull, ashen flesh, which sounds like someone trying to imitate Dracula from Castlevania, but trying a little too hard.
I feel like that's the MO for All For One. He's always just trying too hard.
Yeah, and he kind of chooses this moment as well to talk more about his plan and how he came back and stuff. And it's like, I don't really know if we need to go over this anymore. It's like, you're kind of just like beating the point at the ground. You came back. He lost his will to go on, and you came back when his will disappeared. I get it. He used a transition into his big, tragedy engenders true strength point after this. And he shows off, his weird I can grow a billion corks thing to look like an eldritch horror. And Sero, of all people, gets the rebuttal and just says, I don't know if tragedy engenders strength. Like, I haven't had a very crazy, eventful life. I was just, like, concerned with being a teenager.
Yeah, he's like, unlike the rest of you weirdos, I didn't have like 1,000 traumatic events that defined my life every moment until this point.
Yeah, but I'm still here. I'm still doing my best with these guys. And he also makes the point, like, it's been tough for guys like him. The guy used to look all zonked out and empty. Zonked out. And at that moment, a couple of more portals open up, and Todoroki, father and son, Endeavor and Shoto jump out to do a stereo flash fire fist. And Sarah says, yeah, anyone would be better off if they, didn't go through a bunch of tragedy, basically. It's like, yeah, good point. It sucks. That's why it's called tragedy. It's just bad.
Is that what tragedy means, the word?
Bad things? Yeah.
Hold on a moment. Tragedy definition. Oh my god, Nick!
Just discovered this.
The example is a tragedy that killed 95 people. That's bad.
That is bad. At least it wasn't, no, never mind.
Now, so, Nick, what are the 4 types of tragedies?
Well, in what regard? Literary tragedy terms, or like, what do you mean?
The 4 distinct types of tragedy.
Is this like in terms of like comedy versus tragedy?
There are 4 types of tragedy, Nick.
You're not being very specific in what context.
You're on the clock. It is. I would say it's.
It sounds like literary tragedy.
Literary, yeah.
Because tragedy was used like to distinguish between itself from a comedy, as in like it has a sad ending. And I do not know those off the top of my head. I know that one of them is like, is like caused by the self. One is caused by like external forces, I think.
Somewhat. So, not to delay us, complex tragedy, tragedy of suffering, tragedy of character, and tragedy of spectacle. This all comes to us, of course, via Spark Notes.
Oh, thanks, Spark Notes.
Yeah, so if you're ever curious if Google is usable anymore, no, it is still not, unfortunately.
Oh.
Yeah.
Where'd that answer come from? Oh, I cite the pages to put it up here.
Yeah.
All right. Man, I should get some Spark Notes. So, yeah, everyone is tired. The last people are here in order to try and do it. Everyone gives a big hurrah, like, let's do this. We got to fight these guys. This one guy. One last big job is what they say. And All For One starts talking like All For One. He says, beholding a legion of wounded, desperate heroes, I feel nothing, only forlorn. You cut-rate heroes, mere afterthoughts compared to All Might. Or black hole.
Wait.
Fuck, what the fuck?
When did All For One become Arnold Schwarzenegger?
I don't know. I guess that's just where my voice goes.
That is a great... I don't know why that fits him, though.
I have machinations upon machinations. I lay seeds. The most cerebral villain of our time, as voiced by Arnold Schwarzenegger.
We're referring to Mr. Freeze from Batman and Robin, correct?
Chill.
Yeah, so you ever like go into like a bachelor's place and they have like posters of villain on the wall, and they'll be like, fucking like, oh god, who's the Chicago gangster? Al Capone. It'll be like Al Capone. They'll be like Walter White from Breaking Bad, and then they'll always have Mr. Freeze, specifically the one for Batman and Robin, on there, and you're like, boys and their heroes. They're always looking up. That's why men always crack so many ice-themed puns all the time, because they're like, we got to be more like Mr. Freeze.
It's weird that he is simultaneously not nearly the worst part of that movie, and yet the most emblematic element of it. Like,
in another world, and maybe it's this world, and I just haven't met the right enlightened people, we would be praising that role and that performance as like, this is what Batman villains should be. Hey, Paul Dano, I understand you did a lot of work to be like a serial killer Riddler, but how about you just be a big, gigantic, colorful freak? Like Mr. Freeze. Come on, dog. Do some question-based riddles instead of fucking AR games or whatever shit you did to kill people.
Oh, boy. So, All For One is doing big, giant, terrifying moves. All the heroes are rushing in to stop him. We do see like a bunch of like teaming up. Like 13 is riding around on Bad Dog in order to use her black hole and stuff. Gang Orca is screaming with the sonic blast thingy. Hooray! But they point out like, Jesus Christ, this guy is so strong. It takes dozens of us to ward off just a single move of this guy's. And Deku tries to jump in and join them, but he's still incredibly exhausted. Obviously, Ares' rewind horn got him his arms back, but he had a really, really long and hard fight before that happened as well. So Aizawa goes to him, and he's like, look, you still got all the other injuries. You're still really beaten up. And also Deku says, yeah, and also I gave up all for one. I gave up the vestiges. But he notes that the ember is still within him. Because, of course, he gave it the vestiges, but not the actual element of it, which could, of course, potentially come into play. And he says, as long as I've got that, All for One's got me to deal with. And then Aizawa says, oh, yeah, here, I've got all these supplies that came from when I visited UA, including, here, we can't have you getting a cold. Here's the t-shirt from this one guy. And Deku identifies it because it's on my merch.
I do actually legitimately enjoy this in this moment of such tension and so many things going on. He's still just like, men's series 5 A-line t-shirt. Like, he's just like such a fucking dork.
Aoyama is there and takes him by the hand and is like, hey, come on, we need your strength here. And Deku remembers, reaching out to Aoyama when he was really heavily doubting himself. And we cut as well to the underground bunker where people are watching the fight. And it's not just a single person now cheering on Deku. There's a whole bunch of people doing so, including Eri, including Koda. Gran Torino is watching from his screen. The Can't You See gang is also watching.
Yep. Can't you see, Nick? Can't you see?
I can see, yes. And they're all cheering Deku on, as on the last page is just him running forward towards the conflict, as everyone says, you can do it.
Nick, you say run. I get it now. That's where the You Say Run will start playing, because he's going to run.
It feels like it, yeah. It's, this is a very nice, like, hey, we're gonna do this. It sucks right now, but we're gonna do this, and it's all gonna be okay, because heroes, etc. Mm-hmm. It's a bizarrely feel-good chapter for how dire the situation is.
Yeah, I have to imagine this is sort of the last huge turnabout. All for One will probably have some shenanigans that make it so only Deku and maybe someone else, maybe Bakugo, is like healed up to a point where he can like aid each other, something like that. But this feels like the momentum shift for the heroes for right now.
Absolutely.
All right, Nick, let's talk about Undead Unluck, number 205, Old Plans, New Ideas. So we open with Nico. We see...
He's doing well.
He's doing great. We always thought that the bags under his eyes were emblematic of like unforgettable, making it hard for him to sleep. But no, just the moment you gain those memories, your eye bags extend downwards. As we see, he gains all this memory from what he did in the previous loop, and he has a very intense look. So Language is thrilled. She's like, "This is the greatest. I wanted this look from you. I choose these letters for my turn." And she basically summons these very powerful spears for Sol and Luna to use. And Nico summons a railgun and a nuclear rocket.
Yep.
And those are pointed, and everyone's like, hey, what's going on? Like, all the other, like, normal-ass workers are just like, a lot of alarms are going off, and it's because...
and also their speech is gone, so it's all like...
Yeah, they don't know how to say anything. But their emergency, like, propulsion things are deployed, and all of the pieces of the Union's headquarters are shot out of this base before this, I guess, nuclear rocket goes off. And Nico has an opportunity when he's up in the air and Sol and Luna are up there, that he uses his little orbs and channels it with soul energy to basically like hit them all with a big grid, a 5x5 grid that just like rips straight through them. And Language is like, ooh, that hit Luna. That's not good. He has a grasp on souls. Nico's just like, okay, I'm gonna go first, but before I do that, there's something I need to ask you, and it comes to the game, so I can't have you refuse it and answer. So I add the Uzbek language and choose the English letter T for 10 good precept. One of the tenets of the precept is fumogo, which is like an honesty thing. It'll forbid you from lying. So he has added an element to the game exclusively. One of his 2 words was just to make sure she cannot lie about this. And he's like, hey, are the souls that we have from the previous loop the same souls? And are the people I intend to resurrect going to be the same identities? So you have to anguish me. And we cut over to Soul, who is very like, oh, damn it. Damn it. You guys suck.
Oh, we fucked up.
Yeah. We should have been dealing with Unforgettable. This is really bad. So language immediately has to explain, like, okay, exterminated souls basically go to like a separate dimensional space where they remain until the point where they would be revived in the next loop. So yes, the souls are the ones that are the same. And if you manage to resurrect your friends now, it would overwrite the condition that they can't leave that subspace, thus allowing them to be the same entities in the same physical bodies. So Nico is me like, thank you. That's great. But language is like, you're an idiot. Like, you wasted one of your 2 words just to confirm information against me. Such a dumb. He's like, nope, this was actually very important. Do you hear that? And he's kind of saying it out loud. He's just like, the thought's been at the back of my mind for a while now, even if they're different people, but you've been telling yourself that this whole time, and it means that all your hard work hasn't been for nothing. Isn't that right, Fuko? And we cut over to Fuko, who is crying because this is the confirmation that she needs, that she is helping essentially the same people from the previous loop that she knew.
It's not new versions of them. It's actually her old friends that she's been saving and helping this whole time. Yeah. It's a very striking picture when she has that moment because, she can't talk still.
Yes.
She can only, facially react. But she's so emotional in this moment. Probably the most emotional she's been in this loop so far. Just to have that huge relief settled into her.
So Nico is apologizing. He's like, I put you on edge, but it's okay. Just leave this to me. In the previous loop, I caused you guys a lot of problems. If I could atone for all of that by dying, I would. But even more than that, I want to repay your kindness, basically. I want everything that I've done and all the trust I lost as a result. You still came to me first out of everybody in this loop. So I'm going to achieve it. Despite possessing Unforgettable, I'm going to achieve the most happiness in this loop than I have ever had before. And he uses his new language to use Reamatisha. I got it wrong. It's reincarnation, essentially. And immediately Ichiko and Fang are brought back in their physical bodies. And, language is kind of taunting in her way because she's like, oh, wasted turn. You just brought people back. But she is thinking, shit, that's a feat only possible with Unforgettable's imagination. That's how complete they are. She summons 2 big new swords for Sol and Luna, and Nico just shouts out to Fang. He's like, hey Fang, we need to make it past this turn. Can you do it? And Fang's like, yep, don't worry. And there's a big punch that not only destroys the souls, kills Luna. Like, he's basically a fucking nuke of himself. This attack is very, very powerful. They're like, holy shit, it took like 3 of us to make a dent in Luna, and he took down a pseudo-god all by himself. This dude's crazy. And language is, of course, not only terrified, she's like wounded. Her face is like ripped open from this. And she's like, how could a single human soul put up this much of a fight? How can lives that haven't even lived 1,000 years overcome my words? Or 100 years. She's like, this shouldn't be in your depth. You shouldn't have this perception. She's like, well, it's because I pieced them all together. The images of victories for all humans that have supported us the past 100 loops, the images of happiness, this is what we've all strived for. It's not just my memories, it's everybody's. And he's holding Ichiko. Like, he grabs her like in a bridal style. And he's like, I'm going to marry this woman. And I'm going to fuck her. And we're going to have a kid. And her name is going to be Miko. And I love it.
It's such a specific reaction that Ichigo has.
You know, she's like half excited, half like, what? Like, what are you saying out loud in front of everybody?
Right. It's not, I'm going to marry her. It's not, we're going to have a kid, which, yes, of course, implies we're going to fuck. It's, we're going to have a girl.
And he notes, we're not going to be the only happy ones. Everyone who's joined us will survive and have the happiest life they've ever had out of every loop. And we can see Fang in the foreground, who's so excited. This man just punched a god to death. He's like, yes, yes. It's not just Nico's images alone. It's from everyone's mind. Everyone is helping him to establish this mental image. And we see like a collage of the characters who died in the previous loop before Ragnarok happened. Obviously, everyone died at Ragnarok, but like, you know, Rip and
Void and
Void. Yeah, I had to stop. I was like, who was that? I don't know. Void is a memorable character now, but the Void from that timeline is not.
Yeah, I don't even know if we knew what his face looked like.
No, I think people thought he was a robot. So Nico's just like, look, I'm not going to lose. And this kind of terrifies Language so much, she like devolves. She goes back into stage 2, and they're like, oh, so that means we can only use one word again. So that's the thing we're back on. But Language is taunting. She's like, look, it was a good game, but I will decide my last word of my own accord. And she chooses the word supernova explosion as Soul begins to explode. And she says, this is the strongest image you folks of science have created. We'll return to ashes together, Nico Vorgel.
Yeah, supernova because Soul is exploding
Yes.
in this word that she has chosen. So it's the literal eruption of a star on the planet Earth. It seems like Nico's already like got something that he's gonna do because he does not look to have faltered at all.
No,
and of course,
they have a word left.
Fang's totally fine. He's like, yeah, okay. But Ichigo, she's having that soul popping out reaction, which is very funny in this moment. This is a very cool chapter. It's emotional. It's triumphant. It's funny in a couple of bits with Languages and Ichigo's reactions to stuff that's going on. And I like how, you can see that why Language is losing this. It's not just that Nico is coming up with all these inventive ways of using super powerful rules. She's getting fucking sloppy. It's like, I'll just make some big swords.
Yeah.
How fucking boring is that?
Now, in fairness, as Eerie Gray noted in the chat, these are like legendary spears wielded by like Odin and other like mythological figures. But yeah, as you said, it is lazy. She's just like, Excalibur, you can't beat that. And then fucking Fang punches straight through it. She's like, what? No, you can't do that.
Yeah. It's, you can have the fact that the bad guy who has got the do anything game is lazy be part of the story that you're telling, and it's totally fine.
Yeah.
I think this is a fantastic chapter. It's just, it makes you feel good while reading it all over.
Yep. Absolutely. Nick, we have 2 chapters of Black Clover to talk about.
Oh, we're gonna do that here? Okay.
Is that? Yeah, I think so, right? Am I? Yeah.
Are we?
Yeah, it's a regular series. So.
Okay, it is now, yes. All right.
So let's go through Black Clover. We'll start with page 370, Demolition Charge. We get a 2-page color spread of all the members, I should say all. Many of the members of the Black Bulls at a casino. All of the ladies are wearing the bunny outfits, and all the guys get to wear cool gambling outfits, except for Magna, who seems to have lost all of his clothes. I don't know if it's by choice or not.
It's hard to tell because he's not at any of the casino tables. He's just seemingly naked but excited to be there.
That is right. Blue Box, I think, would technically go first. I, for whatever reason, did not open Blue Box, so that explains why I was missing that there.
We'll do Black Clover first anyway.
Okay.
Right?
These are actually really short chapters to discuss because...
Kind of.
One, I have to remember what was going on because it's like 3 months now between chapters. Last time, and Asta had gotten together and like managed to defeat a couple of like the angels as they're heading towards the Master Luscious angels. And you forget, right?
It's been since December.
But Master Luscious has a backup plan. He immediately begins to like rumble the whole kingdom and everything's shaking. We cut around to different characters, including the king, who are just like, oh gosh, what's happening? What's going on? And we are reminded that Asta was told that in order to make Master Luscious's plans a reality, he is going to cast a super high, quote, super ultra spell way up in the sky. So we see that he is literally lifting up sort of the Clover Kingdom into the air where there is this tree, this, what do you call it?
Yggdrasil.
Well, no, isn't it Yggdrasil. Yeah, I guess would be the term. Or if you're playing Tales of Symphonia, Yggdrasil. That was the name of the main villain of the series. So good times.
I do think that this is a really cool visual. I like the chunks of earth that are under the dome, floating up towards the tree of magic.
Yeah,
thing.
It's cool. Everyone has like reactions to this. We for some reason get a cut over to Real, who's just like, "Wow,
we're fucked."
this is very cool. But most people are just like, "I can't die here. I got to keep going." And and Asta are like, all right, we have to get to the real body and fast. They won't. The other versions won't let them do that. They're like, no, we're gonna interfere. But then that's when a portal shows up. Everything is about portals, Nick. Every series has a big portal to help a bunch of characters show up. All the Black Bulls who are able to still fight at this point have a portal opened up by Finral, and they charge out to essentially filter outwards and start attacking these Master Luscious clones so that Asta and can go forward. We see like Gauche is there with Marie? Was that his sister's name?
I think that's right.
We see Vanessa and Gray. We see Gordon with Charlotte and I don't know, the guy in the white outfit. There's so many fucking characters in here. We see Ichika and Nature Boy Ric Flair are there to help out Yami, but I think oh god, I don't even remember the dead sibling's name. The dead sibling clone is also there as well.
Right, of course.
So there's a lot of things going on. They're like, hey, we also get Luck and Magna are like cheering from down below because, as we said last time, we did actually get to see these characters do something. So they're on the ground. They're not involved in this, but they're cheering like, "Hey, go forward!" And this succeeds. Like Asta and are able to pass by these Master Luscious clones and go forward, which actually is everything that happens in the chapter, leading us to chapter 371, Indestructible Souls. So this character, Morris, I think, who is, I guess, a big deal, is fighting Mereoleona, and her, like, contingent of soldiers are all just dying. We see one of the members of her group. He might have a name. I'm sure he does. Don't care. He dies. He crumbles to dust, essentially. And Morris is just like, tee-hee-hee, or the incompetence dead. Tee-hee. And he summons a bunch of, like, Earth clones, essentially, to deal with Mereoleona.
Okay, so it's hard to tell which one this guy is because there's, like, 3 different named members of the Crimson Lions Guild that have mutton chops. So I can't tell which one this guy is. There's so many.
Luckily, he's dead, Nick. He doesn't show back up in this chapter.
No, he's dead, never coming back. I think it's Ben.
Oh my gosh, is that Ben Funk?
His name is Ben Funk, I think.
I retained that name in the corners of my mind just to be safe. So Mereoleona's like, ugh, this is tough. Like, she's trying to burn up these clones, but it's tough because they're Earth element and they regenerate really fast. And Morris is just like, yeah, I've identified the way you sacrifice your incompetence and aimed for the top. The dimmer a person is, the more they preach ethics, and they rot away unable to accomplish anything. In that case, they should become my research material, serving as fuel for blah, blah, blah. God chose me. I'm an evil scientist. There is nothing new about my character.
Look at my glasses! Ha!
His glasses are the most interesting thing about him right now. They are remotely unique. Yeah. They seem like really poorly balanced. Mereoleona tries to go forward, but she is like really in pain, and her body is starting to break up because that is what Morris's magic does. And he's just he's just taunting her. He's like, "That's your limit. You suck. You've hit it. You're done for." And Mereoleona thinks, "My limit, huh?" And we flash back to her as she walks up to a random group of magic soldiers, and they're like, "Hey, train with me." And all of them are like, "Oh, no, I couldn't possibly do that." And then she hears them kind of talk afterwards about, like, an average knight can't even go up against her, and she doesn't even have her grimoire. Plus, she's, like, nobility, so, like, she's asking too much of us. And even if she did fight, she'd probably just stomp all over us. And Mereoleona thinks to herself that nobody can keep up with her, so it's all right if nobody tries. In the human world, I can't get stronger. But in the natural world, if I put myself up against all these like harsh natural environments, I can get stronger that way, and I can fight in human monsters. And she sees a visual of like this, steel, like sheer wall, and she's climbing it. And she's like, and I almost made it to the top, but on my own, I can't get any farther. As she's falling apart. And then we see a panel of all these hands pushing her and keeping her, from falling. And it's all of her soldiers.
Coach Kamigawa is making sure that Takamura doesn't give up right now. He's pushing him up spiritually.
Yes.
So he keeps on going and fights Brian Hawk and beats him.
Yes. All these details.
This is an old visual is what I'm saying.
Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's all of her members of her guild who are like, no, please train us, Mereoleona. We're not even close to your level. Keep us going. And she's like, no, you guys can't do better than this. Don't even try. And Ben Funk is like, we may never get there, but even so, please let us try to match that strength of yours. And hey, Fuego Leon shows up and is like, apologies for the wait, Mereoleona. We're about to find out in like 3 seconds why it is completely irrelevant that he shows up in this moment. But we can see that Salamander has, I guess, finished its conflict. So now he's here to help. And Mereoleona just says, I wasn't waiting. I'm just constantly surpassing my limits. And in the classic Black Clover way, she creates a new spell that works perfectly for this situation. She does ultimate flame magic, Latin words, and her and all of her teammates come back as entities of pure fire. They are just mana now, which is the ultimate counter to Morris, who breaks people's physical components down. He can't do anything right now. So all the different members of her team are like, what happened? I was sure I died. And Mereoleona says, don't think dying means you can take it easy. Even if you die, follow me, you fools. So they charge forward. Morris is like, oh no, I can't do anything against this. They're all mana. There's no physical body. This sucks. And dies. Mereoleona and her team just punch him to death. And that's the chapter.
Yeah. The first chapter is very, the good guys show up, and that's kind of the point.
Yep.
I imagine that if we were in general higher on Black Clover, it'd be like, hey, cool. But as it is, like, all right, well, they're here.
Gang's all here.
It's the second chapter, as a noted Mereoleona hater.
Noted. Nick wants it heard from everyone here.
Well, I think that it's been well established that I don't really care for her. And I feel like there is stuff going on in this chapter with, like the introduction of this very human element of, loneliness because, she was so strong that she couldn't form like human connections with people, that, informs that. And also is like, hey, this is, the nature of the bond between her and this guild. the problem really kind of comes down to Black Clover has this issue with a lot of groups where everyone in the group behaves the same. I've noted that before with like, the Black Bolt. We've noted that with the Black Bolt, it's just kind of like having the same reaction where it's like everyone just gets excited when it's time for a big moment. And it's like, it feels like some of you should be acting differently than the others, but whatever. Now imagine if there were no character traits for her guild, and so the only character trait that all of them had was their Mereoleona's simps.
Yes.
Like that feels like all that's going on with them. So it's like, hey, they're gonna follow her even when they die, and it feels like that should be a really exciting moment.
This feels like on paper should be the perfect character moment for us, because this is the kind of cool shit we love.
It should be. But because all these people who have just died and are coming back because their will to follow her is that strong, because we don't know shit about any of them, even though we have seen them to some extent before, because they showed up in like, the training arc that like Astro took with Mereoleona. They're just there. They don't have like individual accomplishments that you can really grasp onto. So it feels like it's just, and Mereoleona's followers kept following her. And that's just kind of it.
Nick, real quick, what was Ben Funk's magic?
I don't know. Is he the guy who hits something with a hammer at the front of this group?
His magic is just labeled as copper magic.
Okay. Maybe that's him then. It's hard.
It does look like he uses a hammer, so maybe, yeah.
All right. So,
yeah,
moving on.
I agree with you. I think this moment will be a lot stronger if we cared about the members of her group a lot more. I do think this is still one of the better moments for Mereoleona. Like, if this is the note we have to end the character off on, hopefully she also burns to ashes, and, like, that's the end of her character. But, yeah, I do agree with you that this is a moment I like, but I wish I could love.
Blue Box!
Blue Box!
Chapter 147, Secret Someone. Chinatsu and Taiki are still at the festival together, and they start seeing all the stalls that are set up. They've got shaved ice, and so they go to get some shaved ice, and they're like, oh, I want lemon, I want blue Hawaiian, and they get some, they're like, it's so satisfying and nice. Then Chinatsu offers Taiki some of hers because they got different flavors of shaved ice. And of course, Taiki's like, indirect kiss? She's your girlfriend. Calm down. So she feeds him some after he's, embarrassed a bit. And he's like, oh, I couldn't even taste it because I was so embarrassed. And then she's like, oh, give me a bite of yours too. Huh? And then she just snatches some with her spoon.
I do enjoy that Chinatsu does bypass many of the weird barriers Taiki places on their relationship. Like an indirect, she's just like, give me that. Yoink.
Give me that. Yeah. They go and get some meat skewers. As they get some, they're like, oh, let's get both types of meat skewers that they have and share them together. And the stall, runner is like, oh, what a kind boyfriend. It'd be awfully kind of you if you also bought a roast beef skewer. No, we're fine.
I want that guy to be a major character going forward who's just like, you look like such a cute couple. You should buy her some new shoes, don't you think? I just happen to have this pair of men's size 12 shoes. You're like, that's not going to fit. He's like, but a good boyfriend would buy her these shoes, wouldn't he? You're so nice.
Oh man, Taiki, you're concerned that your girlfriend's not going to be able to make the winter tournament? You know what would help? If you bought this yogurt that is definitely healthy for you and that I definitely didn't get contractually obligated to buy 20 carts of.
You know what I've heard is the best way to strengthen a relationship? A subscription to Time Magazine or any of the other fine periodicals you could sign up for at my store. Have you thought about Better Home and Garden? It's what the best couples do.
Have you thought about refinancing your home? I don't own a home. Well, it's your lucky day!
I've got some mortgages. A good boyfriend would be considering the mortgages in his life for his girlfriend.
I'm 16. Well, it's never too late. Taiki kind of like ghost hands Chinatsu's like, oh, maybe we could hold hands, but she's like, look, the scoop goldfish. Goes to that stall, wants to get some, and but they're also she's also worried like, would we be able to like keep this in the house? And he's like, yeah, we've owned tropical fish before, it'd be fine. And then she points out one of the fish and says, oh, this one's like you because it moves without stopping, going from one end of the court to the other. Well, I mean, it's in a tank, it's not in a court. Let's get that one. And then she's like starts chasing it with the little scoop, and she keeps on going. Come on, Taiki, come over here. Taiki is already calling it by his name instead of just fishy. And Taiki demonstrates like, oh, actually, I had a lot of practice with my grandpa when I was young, so I know how to do this. And she hits this very bizarre look on her face when he very easily just grabs a fish. It's an expression I don't think has appeared in this manga before. So she's going after it, and eventually manages to catch a fish. And she's got it in her little bag full of water. And she's like, I'm going to take real good care of it. And Taiki says, okay, well, I guess you should give it a name. Why can't I call it Taiki? No, don't do that.
I love that thought process. Like, why shouldn't I already have a boyfriend named Taiki? Why don't I have a fish named Taiki? It would be very easy if all of my things were just named Taiki.
So she instead proposed like, well, what if I like mix the syllables around a bit, call it Kita? And so he's like, you should put, like some of your name in it. So we could call it like Cheetah. And she thinks it over. Cheetah. All right, let's call it Kita. Overrides this.
I mean, I do think she is thinking of it, but she does make that decision. She's like, nope, Kita.
Kita is a better name than Cheetah, honestly. But yeah. So, and she says like, yeah, when I look at it when we're at home and I remember today, I'm really happy that your face will come to mind.
Aww.
And so if I include myself in there too, that'd just feel kind of weird. I want to only remember you and smile about it. And Taiki, so understandably, gets really embarrassed and hides his face behind the mask. It's so sweet.
Yeah, it's very, very cute. I love that.
Taiki starts to wonder, like, how is she not embarrassed? Actually, maybe she is embarrassed, but she wants to tell me this. Aw, you're learning that she really likes you.
Yeah.
He spots Nishida further through the crowd, and so he kind of tries to redirect them so that they, evade his clubmates who he doesn't want to see them together.
Thankfully, this is the one time Nishida was an actual bro, not intentionally, but because he's such an obnoxious asshole, Taiki was able to spot him in a gigantic crowd of people.
So he's outside waiting for Chinatsu while she's in the girls' room. And he's thinking to himself while standing there, like, the fact that, thinking it from Chinatsu's perspective, she's going out with me. We also live together right now. Even if we like each other, it's, just going to be hard to, like, let our parents know about that. So we can't really talk to anyone else about our situation. But maybe she doesn't feel the same way I do. And maybe she feels, like, really guilty about this. So he's trying to really consider her feelings in how their relationship is going to work. But his thoughts are interrupted by the arrival of Akari, who is also wearing a kimono for the festival. And she says, oh, how are you? And blah, blah, blah. And he says, like, yeah, are you here by yourself? No, I'm with my friends from badminton. Have you found a good place to watch the fireworks? You're here with your secret someone, right? So I'll keep everyone else away so no one finds out. I mean, it's become a bit of a rumor because, like, people spread rumors in high school. That's kind of just, like, stuff that we do. So if you want to protect that person, you might want to consider the distance between you two. And then she kind of apologized because, like, I didn't mean to, like, overstep my bounds there. And she leaves him. And he's kind of left with his own thoughts before Chinatsu arrives. And now he's got a hat, too, because he's really concerned about anyone finding out about him and Chinatsu.
Such a dork. So this is, cute. This is adorable. I do like that Hikari is reaching this point of like, I think I know who you are dating, and I'm just trying to protect you. I think that's a more interesting angle to go with than just the standard love triangle angle. But I do also get the feeling that like those feelings aren't gone. She's just putting them into trying to help Taiki right now. So cute stuff. We'll see, I guess, if there's any kind of ramifications from any of this.
Yeah. You know how the saying goes: two people can keep a secret as long as you each, tell everyone around you, and also let other people find out about it until eventually everyone knows.
Yeah.
No, wait, that's not how that goes at all. Damn it. Chainsaw Man. Chapter 164: Charred Remains. Denji has just experienced a rude awakening, and most recently has had Yoru challenge him to a fight. But even amidst this, he starts calling out for Nayuta, because last he knew, he had been separated from her and she was in danger, and so he's worried about her. Yoru kind of ignores this and is like, whatever, I don't care what you're talking about, I'll wake you up. And she goes to pull his cord to turn him into Chainsaw Man, but he grabs onto her arm and says, look, I don't know if I'm dreaming or what, but look, if Nayuta's safe, I'll fight you. All right? But we got to find her, please. And Yoru shifts back into Asa immediately, and she says, what happened? It's a nice moment. They go outside, and it's interesting because like people are, for the most part, just behaving normally. And then there's just the corpse of one of the chainsaw people in the street that people are just stepping around.
It's been like, what, 3 weeks or so? Like, it's been, I think it was 2 weeks before Denji woke up. So it's been a period of time, and these corpses are still just hanging about.
The apartment where he and Nayuta lived has burned down and collapsed. And
starting to get the vibe that all the dogs and Meowie didn't all escape together.
I don't see any skeletons. So,
okay, that's good.
Denji starts digging through the rubble to see if Nayuta's there, and he's just kind of like forlornly doing so. Yoru takes back over and she's like, hey, come on. You know the truth. When you escaped, this Nayuta was attacked by armed adults. She's obviously been killed. Quit moping. Face reality. Great person, Yoru is.
Look. She's the war devil. She's not the compassion devil or like the understands feelings devil.
Denji keeps on sadly digging, so Asa takes back over and she like grabs Denji's wrist and she says like, when you saved me, you said you knew how I felt. And I also know how it feels when a family member dies because of you. If there's anything I can do, tell me. I'll help with anything. And it's like kind of discomforting because this is the most like vulnerable and open that Asa has been with someone in the series. Like she's just reaching out to him very sincerely in this moment. But of course, Denji doesn't know Asa's deal with Yoru, so he just sees this woman with one arm go back and forth between "fuck you, get over it" and "are you okay?" And so he just says, "What? You just randomly kicked me in the balls, and now you're being nice to me. What are you doing?"
No one else gets it. So one of the Devil Hunter guys like, "Yeah, I agree. You are kind of hot and cold on this guy."
So she's like, "That wasn't me. Look." Turn into Chainsaw Man and fight me. And this is Asa still talking. And she's like, if we fight, then you can live a normal, happy life, okay? And then she's like, no. Why not? Whenever I become Chainsaw Man, everything around me turns terrible. I have to find Nayuta. Oh, this poor boy. He just wants to find his sister. Ugh. So Asa looks around and she turns to Fami and she's like, say something. And Fami's like, maybe he can't fight because he's hungry.
I like that, like, you asked, like, the hunger devil, essentially, like, what do you think the problem is? She's like, probably hungry. And everyone's like, yeah, that actually sounds right, because they hear his stomach grumble. So everyone's like, all right, let's get him food. It just feels like 99% of the time when you ask the famine devil, what do you think the issue is? She's like, they seem hungry.
Probably hungry.
And like this is the one time where they're like, oh, that might actually be a solution.
And she's like, yeah, I used to like carry around Snickers because I ran into so many hungry people and they wouldn't behave normally. But then I would get hungry and realize I was carrying Snickers, and so I would just eat them.
Yeah.
So Asa says, Denji, name anything you want to eat. And Denji says, there's nothing. Well, maybe sushi. And she's me like, I hate sushi.
This is the Asa I love, where she tries to be like very genuine and open, where she's like, look, Denji, whatever you want, I will do it for you. And he makes a suggestion. She's like, ew, that's gross though. I don't want to do that.
She doesn't like to eat fish, okay? This samurai just like, God, what a bitch. Just has turned everyone in this group against Asa. And so Denji goes back to sadly digging through rubble, but he also says aloud, sushi. Oh, what a weird chapter. Yeah. I love Asa's expression at the very end, too. Pouting. Oh,
it's
God.
Good stuff.
This chapter is very heart-wrenching and also very funny.
It is. It's a good chapter. Kaiju number 8 is next, I believe.
Yeah, it's chapter 106. Kaiju numbers 8 and 9 are fighting, and they're going just pure fisticuffs on each other. Number 8, Kafka attacks number 9, who just blocks it, and they're using that squadron-style combat against each other, the Isao Shinomiya style. I do like that before we get really big into the action, we cut back to the bunker where people are sheltered, and the one little girl is holding hands with the other little girl.
Yeah.
To, reassure her while they fight. But also she's like, go get him, Mr. Kaiju.
10 years from now, you're going to be able to make a sequel series to Kaiju number 8 about those two joining like the Kaiju Defense Force. And yeah. they're the Ashiro and Kafka of that series.
Kafka hits very strong, but it is blocked. They go into just that rapid fire punch kind of thing. And they're hitting each other so hard that buildings around them are collapsing from the shockwaves of their attacks.
They do one of the cool things where they have like a JoJo style, like bump, 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 and then it's like still we get like a 2-page spread basically of like everything fine, and then the building behind them just exploding. I'm like, again, in the Kaiju number 8 way, I've seen this done many times before. This is still done cool though. Like I dig it.
Kafka is on the offensive. Number 9 is forced to block and block and block. But even though he's on the defensive, he's not getting any hits in. He's just absorbing the damage and not buckling. And everyone realized, like, yeah, this is bad. We now know that he's got access to Isao's memories, which means he knows this combat technique. And sure enough, number 9 in the moment goes, I know that technique.
Yeah.
Bumps his fists together the same way and starts and launches a punch at Kafka, which forces him backwards. They both use the same force blast technique and against each other, and Kafka is the one who gives in the face of it. Number 9 has the strength advantage, and it's like, yeah, he's got the knowledge of the strongest practitioner of this style on his side, and number 9 rears back to launch another punch, and he says, too bad. You stayed well within my expectations. Launches a punch. Kafka is forced to block it. And then we get a flashback to some of Kafka's training with Hoshina and the Hoshina-style combat techniques. And he says, look, this is a closely, highly guarded secret. These are inherited techniques that only members of the Hoshina family possess. And I am going to drill the original technique into you. As long as number 9 has General Shinomiya assimilated, you should assume going head-to-head with him with the same technique is not going to work. But we're going to use the fact he knows what cards we're holding against him. We're going to evolve the squadron-style technique by incorporating elements of the Hoshina style.
Cool idea.
Yeah. And it's just like, look, we know that this guy knows what you're going to do, so instead you're gonna zig when he thinks you're gonna zag, and we're gonna unlock a new technique because of this. And he says, look, if number 9 were to assimilate someone who knows this, he would find out, so do not mention any of this to any of the other officers. That includes Captain Ashiro. Don't tell anyone.
Yeah. If he
Let's
had
go
if he had
surpass.
told her, Kaiju number 9 would know it.
Yeah, he says, let's go surpass Isao Shinomiya. And so Kafka gets set with combat technique number 3, goes in for like a double punch move, and instead ducks down deeper than number 9 is expecting. And he's like, wait a minute, that's not the move I know. And Kafka like twists and corkscrews into a modified double punch twin blast, and we get the chapter ending on the variant of the number 3 technique, punch that seems to also cause number 9's body to twist with the motion of the blast.
Yeah,
and it's a cool looking image that we end on.
Yeah, this is a good little chapter where we get to see more of this fight, and I like how they're working in the logic here of like, okay, Kafka, yes, did study under Isao, that's meant to be his power, but obviously the monster that absorbed Isao and has all of his memories should know essentially how to use it, so they explained it well, and they came up with a cool solution to it, which is like, he is also adding Hoshina's techniques to it. So, yeah, it's cool stuff.
I liked it, yes.
All right, Spy Family.
It's chapter number 97. My goodness, it's a Mr. Henderson chapter, y'all.
Nick, screaming from the rooftops. Finally! Finally!
I was so happy when I read this. So we get, Mr. Henderson talking with like the matron of one of the staff of the academy. And she says like, oh, I heard a little rumor that you and your partner were quite the darling couple at the dance. I'm like, yes, they were. They were adorable. And he falters a second and he just says, yes, she is merely an old friend.
That's not elegant, you bitch. She's your girlfriend. You can't say that.
Yeah, the most elegant thing you can call someone. My girlfriend!
My girlfriend!
We transition from the image of the two of them dancing to when they were younger and were both students at the academy. And when Henry Henderson was a 17-year-old student who was just beginning the high school program. Interesting timing for these stages in education, but he first encountered Martha when she was 3 years younger than him, and she was in the ballet, performing ballet. And when he laid eyes on her, he applauded and went, oh, how elegant. And I do like that this is one. He says, this is the first moment I said elegant, when it's like, oh, that's sweet. But then immediately transitions into, I lost some friends because
I got bullied.
People were like, why are you calling people elegant, you weirdo?
You didn't know her. That's very strange. So what a loser. I actually really, really like that this is like the origin for elegant. Some would say it doesn't need to have an origin, but if you have to give it one, the idea that he saw somebody who we're now shipping him with, that he was like, oh, how elegant. It's very cute.
And also, demonstrating that, yeah, it's cool when a very accomplished old man says that stuff when he's doing badass shit. When he's just some teenager, like, what the fuck are you doing calling people elegant, you weirdo?
Yeah. I was going to say his friends just start calling him Mr. Elegant, but they say that's actually what happened. They're like, hey, Mr. Elegant. He's like, well, at least I have my tea.
Oh, is this the act of a loser to have high tea by yourself?
Would a loser drink tea alone in a garden every day at the same time because of their good grades? I think not.
Love him. At this point, he is already an imperial scholar, so he has certain privileges and can just have private tea ceremonies out here. But Martha just kind of comes across him one morning while seeing this, and I love that she also recognizes him from his saying elegant and applauding things. Oh, you're the elegant clapper. So yeah, she hears that and he says, I mean, I've got a cup of tea left. Would you care for some? And so they just started meeting on a regular basis to have tea together. Aww. And they strike up a friendship through this, and I like how he tries to play it off suavely. First, he's like, "Oh, my world of solitude had been intruded upon by a most boisterous invader, but I did not dislike our time."
Yeah, I was gonna say he is so soon in this moment. He's just like, I mean, I have a cup of tea, and then every time she's like, "Hey, sorry, I'm not." He's like, "It's not like I was waiting for you, but I did, I did save you some tea, but I was not waiting for you."
At one point, he got bullied because, and this was, a couple of years later. So he's like about to graduate from the academy at this point. And when they beat him up, he just tells guys like, "This is an act of violence. That's 3 Tenitris bolts for each of you." They're like, "What? Stop saying that stuff. Stop it. Stop looking down us like that." And so one of them goes to beat him up again, and coming whirling and spinning in is Martha with a ballet spinning heel kick to knock the guy into a wall. And she's like using ballet terms, but like announcing her attacks like she's a superhero. She's also got a mask on.
She's wrapped up some cloth, so no one will be able to figure out her identity as she shouts out all of her ballerina themed attacks.
Yeah. One of them manages to grab her, and Henderson immediately just punches him out without thinking. Aw, he cares about her. And then immediately he turns to her and says, "What are you thinking, Martha?" And she's like, "No, I'm not Martha. I'm the masked warrior." Come on.
Nick, she had no
obviously it's you.
She had a whole established identity, the masked warrior ballerina Lady M. Yep. No one will ever figure out. See, here's the thing. Batman's stupid. Because B for Batman, B for Bruce, everyone's going to think it, but not her. She's Lady M. No one's going to connect M to Martha Marriott. Yet another reason why Spy
Maybe if she were Lady MM, but no.
They would have been like, guys, it can't be Martha Marriott. She has 2 M's in her name. So it has to, and this is just Lady M. So it's gotta be someone. It's probably that asshole Bruce Wayne. Let's go beat him up.
Yeah. She promises, like, because he scolds her for using her ballet for violence. She's like, "Fine, I won't fight with ballet anymore. Next time I will use a proper weapon." Well, she kind of did end up doing that, didn't she?
Yeah.
But he's like, why are you behaving like a ruffian? And she says, "I mean, you threw a punch too." He screams and runs away to report himself and the other students for getting in a fight.
God, he's such a dork. I love it. He's gonna be like, I have to turn myself in.
So he's like, "You've got to punish us. Give us Tenitris bolts and stuff." But the teacher just says, like, "Well, look, one of the guys who attacked you he's a vital supplier of munitions for the military. And so if I were to get his son in trouble, then that'd cause a lot of trouble for us. So let's just pretend nothing happened." And Henry's like, but he starts to protest, but he's like, "I mean, come on, what's with you anyway? You seem to be boycotting your military training courses. If you keep that up, you're gonna earn yourself a Tenitris bolt for sedition." Because, of course, as at this point in history, violence is starting to ramp up between the East and West. And we were just kind of having such a good time for these 10 pages of, soon dorky students that, oh, right, this is about war.
Oh, right.
Kind of came up. And so Henry, is really upset about this. He talks with Martha later, and she says, "Look, those guys weren't going to listen to you, so you had to, use force to stop them. How else were you going to do it?" And he says, "How else? Indeed. I know how. Through education!"
Hell yeah. We love ourselves a good teacher in this house.
Yeah, he's like, "Look, there's all this bad stuff going on, and because of that, education is falling by the wayside, and also principles are falling by the wayside. So that's how I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to go to the Berlin University of Education after this, and I'm going to become a teacher who will do good things. And so she's like, "Oh wow, that's great." So when he asks her what she wants to do, he says like, "Oh, are you gonna get a career in ballet?" And she says, "I mean, I want to enter the high school ballet program, but how I perform at the competition is going to determine if I can make a career of it because I don't come from a wealthy family like you." So yeah, um, they kind of like look up into the air and scene change. Uh, the next time they have tea, the tea doesn't taste as good because Henry says like, "Yeah, I couldn't afford the leaves for my blend because it's an import and the costs are skyrocketing." And oh well, this might be the end of our tea party. So she's gonna be like, no, it's fine, it's good, I like it. She asks it. There's a very it's a moment where she says, "Were you planning to invite anyone to the dance at your class graduation party?" And so he doesn't really say anything. He says, "As if I would participate in such frivolity at a time like this."
He is. It's so sad because she's also like, "Oh, yeah, the tea's so good," and he's like, "Well, regardless, I will be leaving shortly, and thus the tradition of sharing this moment will be bestowed upon you to earn yourself my rank, and then you can share this moment with your friends." And you're like, "Buddy, you're not getting it."
She just wants to spend time with you because she likes you. And he admits, like, because he's realized it at this point, decades later. He said, he narrates it over like the image of his graduation. "I was ignorant, obsessed with pursuing my ideals, so desperate to radically change the world that I couldn't keep step with those around me or even spare a thought for the hearts of those even closer." And there's just, like as we fade out of that thought, there's an image of Martha being sad. And we transition to Martha telling the story to Becky at the same time. And of course, Becky is a hopeless romantic, and she's like, "How could you leave him without confessing your love?" And she says, "I was young. Love was a very distant concept for me, and I didn't really even understand my own feelings for it, or even grasp the reality of it. The next day I went to the garden, thinking he'd be there. I had this innocent faith that someone so important to me would always be there. And she went to the little table they had tea at. He just wasn't there because he graduated. He was gone." But time went by. She continued attending the academy. She got to her 13th year. She became an imperial scholar. After that point, we see her with the cloak and the cape and stuff, and it's now her narrating the story. As she says, "Memories of his graduation had begun to fade, and the war drums were beating again. My tea was growing bitter once more." It's fucking poetry. Love that shit. But there's an assembly that's being held before the class starts, and so they are all called together, and someone says, "Oh, we know this is your final term, but we have some new faculty members to introduce. First, meet Mr. Henry Henderson. He'll be teaching history." And we are told by the narration to close out, in the days that would follow, the thud of boots and roar of tank engines would drown out the beating of my heart. Henry became a teacher in 2 years, so good job, dude.
He put some work in. He's very, very smart. High intelligence score, very low wisdom score. He still couldn't pick up on that girl's feelings for him. This is an amazing chapter. I'm so glad we get this. I think you could have relegated this to a side series or something else, but I really like that this is in the main series and we do get this context. It makes these two characters 1,000% more interesting in my eyes.
To give them the context of they're not just the old people involved that are around the children. They have their own lives.
I like that it also did explain why they're paired together besides just being the old couple in the series. Like, oh, these actually are characters who have shared quite a lot of history, and like it was fun to like vaguely wonder what that history was before, but now it's very clear. Like, oh, this is like a love lost situation between the two of them, and I will not rest until they're together, Nick. I don't.
I want it to happen so bad.
I don't know who I have to message. I don't care what heinous deeds, what unscrupulous acts I need to perform to make sure that these two get together and share like a cute kiss before the end of this series.
It's never too late, guys. Come on.
Yeah, I hope the author of Spy Family just writes like a romantic comedy after Spy Family is done, because it is amusing how they create sort of like interesting romances into their series that I just want to see paid off. Like I just watched the Spy Family movie, and the whole time like this really does remind me. I just want to see a moment where Lloyd and Yor get together. Like I love them as a couple. So like all the characters, hope for great endings for them.
All right. It's time for a double helping a world trigger.
Thankfully, the first chapter could be explained as Team 7 beat them.
Match. Yeah.
And they're like, how? And then they get to the next
and
chapter.
They explain. It's first is chapter 241, the away mission test part 37. The bomber that Hughes is commanding gets taken the fuck out, and then they're like, okay, well, they must have like some strong units and some weak ones, right? Because for that to happen. So let's just go in and mop up these guys. Like, wait, why are these guys so strong? This doesn't make any sense. How is their average strength so much better than ours? This is bullshit. And then they eventually get to a point where they're just like, okay, well, we can't win this, so let's just engage as much as we can so that we can gather information, figure out what's going on, so that the next time we have to go up against these guys, oh god, this isn't the last round, we will be prepared for the next time we clash.
Yeah, don't worry, Nick. There's only another 3 to 4 months of this before we finally end this part, and hopefully there's not like another like essay question that might occupy like another 2 to 3 months.
Chapter 242, the away mission test, part 38, is analysis of, especially from Hughes' perspective, of what's going on. And so he says, like, look, you're considering like some complicated tricks for how this could be possible, but if I'm right, assuming that Osamu came up with this idea, it's probably a simple trick, which seems like a really backhanded compliment for him to put it that way. But he said, like, okay, look, the bomber got taken out by those 10 snipers, but all the other units that we engaged had a pretty hefty score to them. So for them to be that powerful, there must be something to offset the cost when they have so many of them. They had firepower, they had range, so the only thing that really makes sense for them to have a dump stat in would be their ammo stat. It's like, well, that's kind of crazy, though, because even if you max out ammo, you only have 13 shots. We've run into that problem before where some of our units run out of bullets before the match ends. And so, okay, but then that would mean they could only have like 3 or 4 shots in that case. And Hughes says, yeah, follow that logic. What if they only intended for those units to fight for 2 rounds? Spend 1 turn setting up and getting ready, and then the next 2 turns firing off 2 shots in each round, and then the rest of the fight, they were just in full retreat so they couldn't be taken out for points. What if that's how it was? Then you would have 22 high-tuned units. Half of them would only be effective for 2 turns, and then the rest of the time it was just kind of to hold us at bay from mopping them up and regaining our lead in the battle. So they established all that, and they give a bit of, recognition to Osamu because, he came up with this plan that seems to be highly effective. We don't know how, of course, Suwa Squad has done overall. We've only seen how they did in this particular skirmish.
Yes.
They go back and do, all right, let's get back into it. They managed to win against Squad 9. They draw against Squad 10. So they're like, all right, we've won 4 matches today, lost the 1 against Suicide Squad, and we are at 4 draws. So that means we're guaranteed to have more wins than losses today. So we're doing good. So then they have to go up against Utagawa Squad. And so it's like, okay, turn 1. Yeah, don't really have a lot to go off of. These are really weird looking units they have. They're like really demented looking, like crocodile people and rabbits and chairs with legs. So they're like, okay, let's just kind of hang back and observe at first.
Yeah, that's fucking Zerg Rush.
Immediately stuff starts getting taken out there. What's happening? What is going on? So, and they're also running into the problem of like, okay, all the units are all grouped up together in a huge skirmish right now, so Hughes' bomber can't make a run without friendly fire resulting. And so they lose the match as a result of that. So they're like, well, shit. Okay, that didn't make any sense. I guess we lost 2 matches today. And that's it. We end the chapter with the announcement of Day 5's rankings are coming out now.
Yeah, God, the series has a way of like always ending it just like a second too early, where I'm like, show me the results. I don't. It's gonna be like a month before we get it. Optimistically, a month. It could be longer depending on Ashiara's health. So it's one of those things like I wish we just got the scores and then I could like think about them and then talk about them next time. But cool strategy in the video game portion of this section of the manga, but I don't have anything else more to say.
It was nice to see some actual different feeling strategies at work, because it's not just like we're piloting little mini versions of ourselves. So there were chances for people to get weird.
Yeah.
Like with Chica Squad, and it's like, hey, here's these giant weird structures that are just diversions, or here's a bunch of units that are just all the same thing and stuff. And seeing that all in action was pretty nice. I really wish we hadn't spent all the time beforehand telling us about the various strategies they could do, and it just jumped into it, because it feels like we've been on this point for a while now because of the time in between certain chapters being published as a result of the pace that World Trigger has to take right now.
Yeah.
I feel like we would be much more excited about this kind of stuff if we didn't have to worry about the pace at which these chapters were coming out. But this is what we have for getting World Trigger right now.
Yep. So, a good news though, no Eden Zero.
That's true.
Next week, it is likely off for Golden Week. Most like the jump stuff tends to take off the next week, which is why we're going to do WMR Jeopardy next week. There'll probably be a chapter of Eden Zero that week, but I'll just recap it with the chapter that comes out the next week because it'll probably be stupid and short anyway. So,
probably.
Yeah.
But now let's get into Astro Royale, Chapter 3, Fight Between Brothers. So last time, our heroes took out the Hawk faction that was, monopolizing all the supplies around the area. But Hibaru and, oh gosh, I forget his brother's name. Hibaru and his brother catch up a bit with Ginji, who I don't know if we've met before.
He must have been visible at some point, but I do not remember him.
He's beaten up and tied up and stuff, and he says, Hibaru says like, "Oh, they caught you, huh?" He's like, "Yeah, sorry, boss, I was cornered, outnumbered." So they set him free, and he basically details more of the situation for what's going on with the family right now. He says like, yeah, a rebellion happened while you were unconscious, and Shio is the one who set it all off, Shio being the oldest of the adopted sons. And he says now they've got their own bases, and we do cut around to a number of different ones. We get to see like there are some very different looking ones, but interestingly, a lot of the brothers are actually working with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in particular like the ones that are close in order, which makes sense because, brothers that are closer in age, it would make sense if there was a tighter bond between them.
Yeah.
So the guy with the glasses we saw before is actually the second adopted son in the family. He is supporting Shio right now. So, Genji says, like, yeah, none of them like the fact that Tarasu's in charge. That started a rebellion. They're all trying to take the boss title right now. So Tarasu grabs Hibaru and is like, hey, we should go down to the armory if you've got the key. So they start heading down there, and he says, like, there's 500 people in the Hawk faction, and there's like a couple hundred more people in the other factions. Even if all of us get together, all of our allies, we're not going to be able to overcome them with numbers. But we have weapons thanks to you taking over this base. And he just leads Hibaru into an armory and grabs a gun. And Hibaru's like, well, those are our siblings that you're talking about using guns against. And Tarasu's like, but yeah, we've got to make up for the disadvantage in numbers, though. And Hibaru's like, no, if you do that, we're going to start a war. Tarasu says, look, if you don't have the guts to kill, then I'm going to kill. And look, we're not even related by blood. And that's cold.
Yeah, he gets all serious. Like, we're not even related by blood. We might as well be strangers.
So he's like, yeah, come on, let's go. But Hibaru leads Tarasu over to a different room, into a dojo. And he's like, this place brings back memories. It's where Dad trained all of us. Big photograph on the wall of everyone in judo gis and stuff. And he says, one of the Yotsurugi family codes is that any fight between brothers should be settled by a throwdown. So I challenge you to one, you jackass. Genji is observing the fight, and he's like, look, this is a man-to-man fist fight. No one can interfere in this. You just go all out until it's settled. So Hibaru says, I'm pissed. And Tarasu is like, all right, what do you want to do then? And so Hibaru charges in. His arm starts charging up. Hibaru responds by revealing his Astro, Yata no Kagami, which is a shield. Which, of course, we knew was going to be the case.
Seemed expected.
He's like, you're not the only one who got powers. And he says, I got this because I wished for the power to protect the gang. And a war is about to break out. We need the weapons if we're going to take control. And he counters Hibaru's punch and then uses that as an opening to lay in some punches and kicks, knocks him to the ground, pins him with his knees, and he says, this is kill or be killed either way. If you're not ready for that, then I'm going to have to fight by myself. And he starts to rear back to finish Hibaru off with a punch, but Hibaru says, that's not right, though. And he launches him up into the air with his arm and gets to his feet. And he says, this isn't about killing or being killed or being ready or not. It ain't about any of that. And he starts hammering away on Tarasu's shield until he knocks him onto the ground. And he throws a punch, but stops his fist just short of Tarasu's face. And he says, this is just a fight between brothers. You don't got to blow it out of proportion. All of his siblings have gotten into tons of fights before, but we've shared a lot of good times too. So don't go around saying there were nothing more than strangers. Aw, cares about his bro.
Yeah, I also like that as he's like doing the turnabout, you can see Gramps is like, yeah, get him, Hibaru!
Yeah! I'm just happy to be here.
Kick his ass! I also like that kid, but kill him! I got $2,000 riding on this. Like, Gramps, this is a match between friends. Like, what are you... Why are you betting so much on it?
Hey, Bono, don't you question where I get my candy to sell.
Like, isn't, like, the economy in shambles because of the apocalypse storm or the meteor storm?
That's right. I won it all by human cockfighting.
All right, Gramps. I think we might have to reevaluate our affiliation with you very soon. Or you could join my cockfighting ring.
Oh, God. Hibaru backs off from Tarasu. He just, sits down away from him. And Tarasu apologizes. And Hibaru says, like, look, I love you, and I love Shio and all of our siblings. So I'm going to face every last one of them, and I'm going to convince them to join us. I just know that if I talk to them, they'll understand. This guy is very shonen.
This is one of the most shonen characters to ever run the gamut.
So Tarasu gives in. He's like, all right, let's go pay our siblings a visit together. And the two of them head out on a motorcycle to go to a neighboring division, Ikebukuro. And there's, of course, all sorts of damage from the, apocalypse. And they're trying to track down, one of their siblings. They've left Genji behind to look after the base. So it's like, all right, it's nice to have established that character, even if he's not particularly important. Just to say, like, here's a member of the gang that we can rely on to just run things.
Yeah.
It's not like, we've left all the random people there. So
that'd be great. They're like, all right, Gramps, make sure everything's good. He's just like, sure thing, but if there are more cockfighting rings when you show back up.
Human or otherwise.
I don't know why the idea that they call some human cockfights is so... Just call them fights. It'd be like... They don't call like the 100-meter dash at the Olympics the human horse race. He's like, nope, it's kind of a weird little thing that I like. I want you to see yourselves as chickens fighting each other.
Except, of course, if you lay an egg, so to speak, in this fight, that means I need to kill you.
We turn you into glue. They're like, Grandpa, that's what happens to horses when they lose. I've been making glue out of chicken for years. Don't you tell me what I can't make glue out of.
And anyway, you haven't seen what I do to all the people I have running my human horse races. If they break a leg, I gotta put them down.
And then I make chili out of them. Like, well... You know what? Fair enough.
They're looking for one of their siblings, Karan, whom Hibaro says, like, yeah, he's a man among men that we've got to get to be the first on our side. And according to them, he has been climbing the ranks by pure skill alone. We get a little shot of Karan as we end the chapter. He's got nice soles on his shoes.
Yeah. One of the members from like that first chapter preview did have like a bottle of liquor as like their item. Like there's like hand coming out of smoke. I don't know if that's him or not. Would be interesting. But the important question here, Nick, is this has been 3 chapters, Astro Royale. We have to ask ourselves the question, are we going to keep this in a recap?
I feel like this has been probably the most kind of basic chapter so far. Honestly, parts of it are kind of underwhelming just to have like, oh, and here's Tarasu's ability too.
Yeah, I was hoping that would have been more of like a spectacular unveiling.
That being said, there is just kind of a nice feeling I have about this series thus far. I don't mean in terms of like, oh, next big hit right here, but I like it. I like reading it. And yeah, I would say that I would like to keep on reading it.
Yeah, I think I would like to keep reading it as well. So we will keep Astro Royale in the recap, and surely only good things can come of that.
Yeah, like with green.
Yeah, this actually is a real answer.
Chapter 21, What I Can Do. We briefly check in with Toto, who is also participating in the tournament. She's not doing great. She is 5/6 through the tournament thus far, and she's sitting at +7. So not doing fantastic, but she's doing okay. She wonders how Oga is doing, and so she's like, oh, well, here's the spot where the leaderboard is. And Oga is actually leading the tournament currently. She is 2 under par, but is only on the 9th hole. And we see that she finishes up her 9th hole with a birdie, so she goes to 3 under par. So she is the clear leader at this point, is doing great. Haku is observing her, and he's like, she hasn't bogeyed a single time. She's doing great. She once again hands him her club with her left hand, and then they proceed to the 10th hole. But she asks before they go, like, what's the next hole? And he says, hole 10. All right, great. And Haku starts to get a little bit like, huh, she must be really focused on playing, I guess. She doesn't even realize what hole we're on. uh, we keep on watching as like Dewa is like trying to close the gap with the others because she's trailing, but only by like a little bit. Yamashita is two behind Oga, and then Dewa is two behind her. So all doing very well halfway through the competition. They head to the 11th hole, which is a par 5, very long course, 400 yards, and so Haku thinks like she's been doing great with her driver today, so maybe she has a chance to get another birdie at this point. So he asks for her driver, and Haku again is like, is something bothering her? Because she just clearly seems distracted. And Oga slices on the drive, and it's the first like clear mistake that she has made. And at first it's just kind of like, oh, pressure,
Yeah.
He says like, okay, let me get your club, and she's like, yeah, thanks, Yasaki. And she is clearly strained, like her eyes have lost a little bit of their focus at this point, and Haku is like, all right, something's wrong here. She recovers nicely, gets back onto the green, and she's just thinking to herself, I'm gonna win. I'm gonna do it. I'm ready. I haven't gotten any real achievements yet, but I got to go to the States. It's got to be because of my efforts. I'm not going to let anyone think I got in just because of my mom. But she goes for her putt, and she falls short. So she gets a bogey for the first time in the tournament. She's starting to slip. And Dewa and Yamashita realize it. And they're like,
we can claw
I'm going to take advantage of this. Yeah, we're going to go for it. So Oga starts to keep on going, and she's thinking to herself stuff like, Oliver's told her, look, you're overworking yourself. She thinks about how her arm has been bothering her, but she's just thinking, you have to do it. Don't let it show, because that's just going to hurt you. It's just 6 more holes. Just stay strong. And we also see that, like, she's been gripping her arm that way. It's not just today that it's been bothering her. We learn. So this seems like a thing that she's been putting off for a while. So Haku comes up to her and he says, are you okay? Does it hurt? And she plays dumb, and he says, look, I based my swing off yours. I know your swing is different. You're favoring your right elbow right now. She doesn't answer him. She just says, be quiet and carry my bag. So he starts to object. He says, look, I know this is important, but she just holds her hand out and says, my 5-iron. And she hits and does not favor her right elbow. There's a huge twinge of pain that she hides, and she's like, look, perfect. See?
Yeah, see, everything's fine.
And Haku, he doesn't say anything, but he literally is biting back his responses while mentally shouting them in his head. You've got to stop. Why are you pushing yourself? You're going to do permanent damage. She holds out her hand for a putter, and he pauses. And so Oga goes like full on ruthless, don't get in my way mode. And she says, you're not going to give it to me? If you're going to get in my way, leave the bag and go. And Haku hesitates, and he says, is there something I can do?
He just wants to help.
I'll do anything. Send the pain over to me. And Oga falters, and she just says,
That's stupid.
That's stupid. Don't be stupid. That's magical nonsense. Just carry my bag. She asks for her putter, and he gives it over to her, and then she's like, Yasaki, I'm glad you're here.
Aww.
Oh, my heart!
Yeah.
So he says, like, look, just try to use a club that won't hurt your elbow, okay? And she says, don't ask for the impossible. But she sinks a birdie after that. Like, she has gotten some mental clarity again, because sometimes when you just double down when you're under pressure, it doesn't help.
Yeah.
So Haku is thinking to himself, like, he's like rooting her on, and he's like, I'll strike the victory pose for you. I'll take the cap off your bottle. You won't stop no matter what I say. I know I don't have the right to tell you what to do, so I'm going to support support you with everything I've got. Instead, let's get through this together. The others, again, just see an opening in Oga's game because she is hurt. And at this point, she's trying not to exert herself. She's holding back in her drives, and they're not letting up. She's got a 3-stroke lead, and they're going for it. But towards the home stretch, like, Yamashita's like, you can do it. 4 more holes. It's like, God, that's so nice.
Yeah.
It's like, we're going to beat you, but you can do it. You can get through this, rooting her on. And even Day was like, it's no fun beating someone who's hurt, but I'm going to win.
Yeah.
And they keep going after her, and now the match comes down to the final hole, and we see Oga sink her final shot, but we don't know the results of the match at this point. But this is such a good chapter. I did not expect things to go this way. Like, you go with like, oh, an injury angle. What's going to happen? And is she going to collapse? Is she going to butt heads with Haku? And he helps her get through it. It's so nice.
It's very adorable. It works out super well. I don't know. It's really good. I do like that they're going with the injury angle, but he's just like, look, I won't yell at you. I don't really think I have that place, but I will do everything I can to support you. And she goes along with it. It's tough to like put it into words, because like on paper, I like wouldn't like this exchange that she just doesn't listen to him necessarily, and she's like, I'm just gonna keep playing. But it's this weird mutual respect that she has where she's like, look, I am gonna keep playing, but like I'm just gonna try to not fuck my arm up. But you also understand how this game drives you and like how you don't really want to stop. So there's something just cool about it that I dig, and it works really well.
Yeah. It definitely seems like there's going to be some long-term consequences for, Oga fucking up her elbow. But we'll get to those afterwards, I guess.
Yeah.
Kyokuto Necromance, Chapter 2, Travail. So our protagonist
There
is
sure
now...
are humans looking at me on the cover of this color page.
Yeah, well, that guy's kind of looking a little bit to the side, like very just slightly to your left.
So he's looking at like a ghost or something that's right over here on my shoulder. Okay.
Yes, he's gonna punch it. Kaoru is
Run,
working.
Ghost! They're coming for you.
Kaoru is working at Amane's agency, and he's just being a lazy slacker and being like, the word for work in French is travail. It comes from the word torture. Okay. So they don't really do anything all day. And he's like, oh, you can go home, Kaoru. I'll drop you off. And so they get in the car. And Kaoru kind of, recaps like, I'm doing this in order to protect my grandmother from Shiryo. I've got to become a necromancer like my dad wanted me to. That's why he gave me the ring and everything. But as they're driving down the road, Kaoru's like, I think I just saw a Shiryo just now. And Amane is like, we can ignore it. We spotted a Shiryo from a moving car. You wanna exterminate it? Yeah. So there's one that's bothering a drunk guy. So he goes and approaches the drunk guy, and he realized like, oh, the last time that I fought a Shiryo, my ability activated because I wanted to save my grandmother, and this is just some guy. I don't know if I can like fire myself up to do that now, because it's just some guy.
Yeah, who cares about this dude? It's not my grandma.
Yeah, so Amane's watching, and then the Shiryo locks eyes with him, and he realizes like, oh, it's targeting me. What do I do? How do I be a necromancer? Wait, why do I want to be a necromancer? Is it my dad's wishes? No, that's not it. That's right. The day of my dad's funeral, and we get a flashback. And so when his father died, there was an uncle and aunt who were like, oh, we'll take you in. And he's like, oh, I don't want to do that. What do you mean you don't want to do that? Well, I don't want to go move somewhere. I was like, well, come on. Move,
but
stupid
do it.
brat. do it. We're gonna love and support you, you little asshole. So that was great. Turns out that they actually just wanted to do it so that they could take the house and sell it because, you know, someone, if you see a funeral after a relative has died in manga and anime, if relatives show up, it's because they're dicks. So there you go. So they were trying to pressure him into it. Then his grandmother came by and said, "Oh, I'll stay with Kaoru. I'll sell my house in the countryside to have some money so I can take care of him. I don't have very much, but I just need to take care of him." Aw. So she did that, and you know she was already at that point quite old and feeble, and you know needed Kaoru to like make sure she didn't fall and stuff. But she just said, you know, even like they were going up a hill to go home, like, "Are you okay doing this?" And she said, "As long as I get to live together with you, Kaoru, I'll always have pep in my step." I do like her. I do like the grandma. She's very sweet.
Good grandma. Good grandma content, Nick.
So Kaoru realized, that's it.
She's a gilf. A grandma I'd like to be friends with. There were some extra letters in there.
Kaoru is like, "That's it. I have to have pep in my step. 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 Have pep in my step."
Is this a reference to a song?
No, he just keeps on saying it.
It's weird. I blocked out a lot of this chapter.
So he dashes towards the Shiryo and he like swings his fist and it goes blah, and he's like, "That's it. I want the power to protect Grandma by my own hand, so I want to be a necromancer, and if I put my mind in that, then I'll just always be able to fire up my heart."
What if everyone is my grandma?
It's like the whole thing in Demon Slayer where Nezuko protects people because she sees them all as her siblings, except without any of the steps that made that interesting. How do I protect people who aren't my grandma? I know, I'll think of my grandma.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool. Very real. Cool. That's a solution for it, my guy.
So he knocks the thing down and starts to recover, and he realizes, like, oh, right. I've got to find its soul and pull it out and take it out. But how do I do that? Where is it? And then a demonic weird figure puts a hand over Kaoru's head and goes, "Let me feast." And all of a sudden Kaoru can see where the soul is. And the figure is like, "Let me feast and I'll respond." This isn't concerning at all. Not at all. So, like your father. Okay, we'll unwrap that later. He goes and he tackles the thing and yanks out the soul, and he just tosses it towards the spear that has appeared behind him, and it goes, "Ow!" And the guy holds his face in a way that, friendly people do. And he says, "Yes, call for me. If you call for me, I will respond." So anyway, we're not going to think about that anymore. Yeah. Amane's like, "Good job." So then Kaoru's like, I wonder if he was testing me from the start. This boy's too trusting. They arrive at Amane's mansion, I guess. He's got, like, a butler of some kind. So, yeah, they go in and Amane says, "There is something called the Shiryo Sorcery Society, and they do all manner of things pertaining to necromancy at this assembly hall. So let's go. There are procedures to go through." And so they approach a guy. Kaoru's like, "I've seen that person on TV." Anyway, yeah, that they're meeting with him. End of chapter.
Yeah, super cool. Last chapter I didn't read it, like, before the episode, and I have the exact same vibe this time where I did read it, and I just feel nothing for this series. It like sits in this perfect area of just like my mind is already slowly processing how I'll refer to this series retroactively after it's been canceled. Like, I know that's a poor way to like have an attitude towards it, and I'm trying to undo that, but it's where my brain like innately wants to go, because it just does not see like a ton of potential for this series. This lead is kind of boring. His allies are kind of nothing's exciting me about this series so far.
The main strength of the series thus far is that the action scenes are visually interesting to look at. But I mean, like, the characters that's going on, this whole sequence, it's very similar And it's not fair to compare every Exorcist series to past, much more famous ones. But this does very much remind me of the second chapter of Bleach. The point of that was that, Ichigo at first was just like, look, I was just interested in protecting my family. I don't want to get involved in all this Soul Reaper stuff. And then when someone was in trouble in front of him, he jumped into action. Ruki was like, hey, what are you doing? Getting involved in stuff. And he's like, look, I'm not the kind of guy who can just ignore things that happen in front of him and leave them. And so it was like, it's a look into his character and the type of hero that he's going to be, which is like, look, I'm a good guy, but I'm also kind of an asshole, sort of thing. I've got my principles, but I'm also not a happy-go-lucky dude. This one doesn't really establish stuff about Kaoru himself. It establishes that he loves his grandma, and it's like, yes, that's very sweet that you love your grandma, dude, but he acts so boring in the entire rest of the chapter when that does not come up. He's just looking around at stuff very wide-eyed and doesn't leave much of an impression.
Yeah.
And,
There's like a couple interesting visuals, like when his stand is like grabbing him around the head. But like, I've become immune to those like one or two one-off cool visuals in these series where I'm like, it's just not enough. Like, I won't remember this down the line. So, I don't know. Maybe chapter 3 will turn around. That's where all the good stuff is being saved.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So, new Exorcist for chapter 48. So last time it was revealed this is chapter 48 potential. Morioki is going to be doing Gakuro's next test. His only objective in this stage of the test is beat this guy. We see the conversation between Nue and Morioki where she said like, "Oh, I need you to train Gakuro," and he was like, "I mean, why my objective is to eliminate him." He's like, "Yeah, I mean, go ahead and try." All right, so yeah, he's fighting Gakuro with the intent of killing him, and yeah, sure enough, like they start to find Gakuro starts to go, let's have a good match. Immediately has a knife in his chest, and Morioki just keeps on going after him, and he's like, did you ever think that even with me as your opponent, you couldn't be killed if you're under Niue's dominion? I would think the same, but let's test that theory. So I do kind of like that he's just like, I will try and take advantage of this to kill this target of mine. Nue observes the fight and says uninteresting things for a little bit. Gakuro goes, all right, I'm fine. Come at me. And he can still move afterwards. And immediately Morioki's like, oh my God, he used the shadow to stop the bleeding. How much training has he had while I've been in prison? Not much. In fact, this shadow thing had nothing to do with any of the training he had before, as far as we know.
Yeah.
I think.
I mean, his power did go off of shadows previously. Mm-hmm. Like, his sword got stronger based on the shadows it ate or whatever, but...
Morioki is like, oh my God, he's completely changed since I last fought him. How could I have not seen it when I first met him? This boy has potential worth developing. Really? That's all it took?
Yeah, this seems so
He
easy.
got up.
Yeah.
He got back up and he stopped his bleeding. Oh, he's got potential.
I get what they want to do. They're like, I want to turn this character who's supposed to be like an uber cool, like badass antagonist into somebody who's kind of like a morally gray ally / mentor. But I feel like there needed to be like a whole chapter devoted to that happening, rather than just like, he survived an attack. I don't want to kill this boy anymore. Like everything this guy's like orders and like thought process has been like, I have to kill him. And he gets up once and he's like, actually, what if I trained him? What if I threw away all of my morals and values and trained him instead?
There is meat left on the bone here. So much that you could have done with this setup. Just as like, I want to kill Gakuro. Leave it on the scene of him like doing that and Gakuro getting up and continuing to fight. Just like leave that scene cut somewhere else, come back later, and then eventually have Gakuro do something really cool. And then Morioki's like, oh, this guy, yeah. just
Yeah,
turns on a dime
have him do
immediately.
something like, "Oh, he chipped my soul armor after a long effort." No one does that at his level. That means he has potential, or something like that. It is worth noting, Nick. I don't want to get you excited. I don't want to turn your day upside down. New Exorcist has been dropping in pretty heavily in the rankings.
Anyway, so Niue is like, Gakuro should be okay now, so I will give it my best too. I'm going shopping.
She just
That's just what the visual looks like.
It does look like she's about to go shopping intensely, but she's shown up with souvenirs.
Yeah, she's got the souvenir bag. She's going to have a meeting
Now,
with the Exorcist Bureau.
Nick, I have an important question to ask. What are they souvenirs of?
I don't know.
She lives at the school. Like, what is... And she can't go far. So what has she brought to this? Like, I understand she's trying to bring gifts, but is she just like, and here is a 4th grade algebra book for you, and here is a compass for you? What would you give them?
I brought you chalk, and you a little bit less chalk, because this was the used piece. Yeah, so we get some establishment that, like, oh yeah, the zone that she can actually, like, wander around in has expanded because Gakuro's been getting stronger. She is now able to reach the Exorcist Bureau, but has only recently gained that ability. She gets in a car and drives off with some people who are wearing, like, nun habits, I guess.
Yeah.
So they're escorting her, and she's like, man, you didn't even bring just one car. This is a lot of precautions. And they say, oh yeah, everyone here is a master of spirit detection. Your spirit presence may be concealed to its utmost limit, but we sensed you the moment you entered the bureau. Not a single trace can evade us. And then so they're being driven, and then there's a car behind them that's being driven by one of the level 4 spirits we saw before. So not a single trace will escape their notice. Okay?
Yeah.
Moriyuki sends Gakuro back home at the end of his training. He's exhausted, but he's like, gets back. Suo is back already, and she, quote unquote, has been crying. As in, she is looking perfectly normal, but there are tiny tears at the edges of her eyes.
She has very delicate feminine tears, so you know that she's very sad. Nick, she's immediately like, I can't believe you saw me. I didn't... we're going to get to maybe the best moment of the chapter, but why would she just cry openly in the room if she's like, I didn't want anyone to see me? Like, go to the bathroom. We established that there are different bathrooms. I'm
definitely here by myself in this room that multiple people have access to and could come in without my notice.
Also,
anyway,
what's her name here? Isn't the fucking cleaner lady
She's been there. Koga. She's been there the whole time.
Yeah, so...
Kuga, one
don't
of those
really
two.
get it.
Anyway.
But I do love Gakuro coming in and being like, I'm sorry, I was so pathetic and couldn't open the door with any force.
I'm not a manly man who can knock doors open and go bang and slam and scare everyone in the house. I open the door and it actually closes because I try to do it so weakly.
I'm sorry, I'm such a beta cuck bitch. I couldn't slam that door open with any oomph, so I didn't surprise you. Like, what are you I am famous amongst my friend group for apologizing at everything. Never once in my life have I ever apologized for being like, oh, I'm sorry I didn't open that door hard enough for you to hear me.
Oh, God. It's because she's, crying and he feels bad for intruding. But that's such a weird thing to apologize for. Anyway, she says, go take a bath first. And he's like, oh, I wonder why she was crying. Is it okay for me to ask her about it? I think she had a ring on her finger. It's her special crying ring. She puts it on in order to feel sad, I guess.
Now, Nick, this is the thing. All women do have a crying ring that we put on when it's time to cry. Yeah. We keep it underneath our vibrators because we wanted that to be found even less. Like, we bury it underneath all of our drugs and sex toys so that you'll stop. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm aghast at this. And our crying rings are kept secret.
Oh, okay. So, the visual. Oh, anyway. Oh, what we got in here? Tampons, a booklet of all of her period.
Yeah,
schedule.
all of my cooked account books, some bags of heroin.
All right, clearly there's nothing else in here. Oh, thank God he didn't find my crime ring. Oh, Jesus Christ. So, Gakuro recalls that Koga told him, like, oh, there was a captain that she admired. So he's like, oh, I should not ask about that. Later on, they're cooking. Suo is clearly, like, distracted. So she's like, you know, while they're preparing food and everything. And so eventually Gakuro decides, like, oh, I know what I'll do. After we have cleaned up the mess and eaten, and once we're in bed together, just all the way until they're finally in bed. He's like, I know what I will do. Senpai, please tell me why you were crying. Not even looking at her. He's staring at the ceiling.
This is the only way he can do things. My guy has so little nerve that the only way for him to say things is to shout them as loud as possible while staring straight forward. He does it, and like intimacy destroys him on every level.
It's like, oh, if you got hurt during training because you're distracted, I'd feel really bad. So you don't have to talk about it if you. And so Suo's like, I don't want to talk about it. Okay, he drops it immediately. So but I will. Ah. So she says, like, I was betrothed to someone, my childhood friend. He came from a pretty prestigious family, and this was only up until around middle school. He was incredible. He was a captain, and the youngest one at that. There wasn't any romantic love between us, due to the age gap. But I really liked him a lot. He was considerate, and talked to me about anything, and could do anything. I was kind of jealous, so I pushed myself with missions and studying in the hopes of becoming his equal. But then, he died, and I became afraid and lost my motivation to do anything. I wonder who it could be. I swear to God, Quinn, if this has just all been a roundabout way to have Suo be Gakuro's almost mother who's not related to him by blood, I will lose it.
There's a moment, but like, surely it would be a detail that'd be brought up by now if she was like, hey, so I was engaged to your dad when I was 12.
My God. Oh, God. So she's like, yeah, I lost my motivation after he died. I didn't want to fight or make friends, but then I did again. And I wasn't prepared for it, but I met you and Fujino and Tome, and just as I did with him, I've once again made friends I can fight alongside. That's why I've been afraid lately. When I saw his memento, I thought about losing people dear to me again. And Gakuro, in the most awkward way you possibly can. He did it when he grabbed her boob before. He's doing it now. He reaches out perpendicular to himself, fully strengthening his arm to do this, and takes her hand. This bed is enormous. How is it this wide? That they're full wingspan.
Yeah, this is a crazy size bed.
God. So Gakuro assures Suo by saying, we're the same! I'm afraid! Of losing everyone too! Every single day! Since we're both afraid, could we hold hands for a bit?
I love that she has to lie and be like, ooh, that was smooth. Like, no, it wasn't, girl. He was crying while he said it. Like, I understand you're trying to be nice, but like, it's almost kind of mean to say it like that. Like, you're convincing him he has game when he doesn't.
So she's like, let's sleep holding hands tonight. God. Jesus. You know, Quinn, this is the reason why, like, isekais suck, is because the guy, it's always about a guy who just, like, shows basic humanity to a woman, and it just so happens that everyone in her life has abused her and told her she sucks and treated her as subhuman. And so when someone is remotely nice to her, she's like, my doki doki. Like, she says flat out, like, oh, I don't have friends because I was depressed and didn't want to meet anyone. So she just thinks that Gakuro has appeal because she can't meet anyone else or make connections with anyone else. And it was the same thing with Fujino before. Like, she has no connections to anyone. So there's one person she has connections with is like, oh, I love him now. Just fuck, man. Like, this sucks. It's so bad. And you know what? I love this. This is so entertaining. It's so bad.
I was gonna say,
feed me more of this garbage.
I will take 1,000 of these chapters over the ones where I'm like, this was like a mediocre battle manga chapter. Who cares? Like the shit earlier where it's like, you've earned my respect after taking one of my attacks. Like, that's dog shit. I don't care about that. Give me this cringe, fucking embarrassing romance, and I'll eat that slop up like it's fucking spaghetti.
So yeah, more new Exorcist, please. It's terrible.
All right,
Oh
it is the Elusive Samurai, everyone's favorite series.
Chapter 155. God, I read this chapter on Sunday, and I was like, I'm just gonna skip through this. It's not fun. It's not interesting. And then I was like, no, I am part of a weekly manga recap podcast where we talk about the chapters. I am going to read this chapter properly. And then I did it. I was like, but nothing happens. It's nothing. It's so... There's a festival. It's going to happen. They go and buy stuff so that they can give them to people at the festival. There's a bug flying around me. It's distracting. They're gonna celebrate Tango no Seku. They have sake and stuff. They tie people's hair up so that they can feel all fancy. They exchange gifts, and people that I don't remember were part of this series before are emotional with each other. Kie has a banner that's got Furin Kazan on it. It's the one thing that I took note of in this chapter because I'm obsessed with Furin Kazan. It's a really cool expression, and I will always note it whenever it comes up. Then he throws the banner at Ayako and is like, enshrine this banner here. And Shizuku says, throw it away. It may be a special grade cursed object. I don't know why. She says that. I don't get it. I don't know what the joke is. I did not get it.
It's some Jujutsu Kaisen joke, I think, but I don't know.
She calls it a special grade cursed object, yeah. So, all
right, fucking me and Roboco, like, chill out.
Akie has his men try and compose haikus. They don't really get it. Akie loses patience with them quickly. They have flowers. Okiyuki serves a salmon to Akie, and he's very touched by it and gives him head pats. And then everyone goes down to the river to throw rocks at each other because they're having a rock fight, like a snowball fight, but with rocks. And we are told that 300 people suffered injuries. 20 suffered severe injuries, but morale doubled. Okay.
Cool. Because they had a good time. This
chapter happened.
They had a good time, Nick.
And if we liked Elusive Samurai more, we would be eating this up and being like, "Look at this! Everyone having a good time. All the characters we love."
I'd be scooping it up like it's spaghetti in my mouth, Nick. I can't stop thinking about manga being spaghetti right now. I'm actually kind of hungry for spaghetti, but I'd be chowing down. But unfortunately, I don't care for the series very much.
No, don't really.
And I like Jujutsu Kaisen, but I didn't get the Jujutsu Kaisen shout out. So.
Akane-banashi.
Yeah, Nick.
Story 108. Patient. We get a a reminder of what the rank of Shinichi means. It means it's a fully fledged Rakugoka according to the Rakugo Federation. But in the Arakawa school, it has different standards for promotion. A Shinichi is one who has mastered their craft. So different standards there, and they know, like, because Goguma says, like, yeah, Akane, you've never met an Arakawa Shinichi, have you? And she's like, yeah, I guess we haven't. And Koguma says, like, yeah, the Arakawa school has fewer Shinichi than other Rakugo schools, except for the Ransaika school, because Urara is literally the only one. But she's like her own school, so that kind of makes sense. There's only 7 Arakawa Shinichi in total, because they've got really strict standards. And they say, like, you cannot be a Shinichi unless you master your art. You have to have the skill of an Okanban. And Akane just kind of gets a look on her face like, and that's what I'm going to be one day. Just gets excited. And Goku's like, you're supposed to be feeling intimidated right now. She just kind of like realized she got caught being, a shonen protagonist, basically. So they note that because they were scared of being expelled, a lot of Futatsume have transferred schools, which the Rakugo Federation made an exception to allow because the Arakawa expulsion was such a big controversy. And they say, yeah, no one since that day has even attempted to become a Shinichi via the promotion test. The only one to challenge that pinnacle now is... And Mike Harris shows up, and he has just no regard for how tense the situation is. He gets all cartoonish and is like, yeah, let's get drinking, whoa! So, and they're like, man, I don't know if he's actually properly ready for this. And then they all look at him, and they're kind of tense, and he's like, oh, don't worry, gang. I wasn't barfing. It's like strikes a sexy pose to go with.
Like, he then, job, bud. I'm glad you weren't barfing. You let us know the best way possible.
He turns his attention to Akane and says, like, hey, you know how the, March is the end of the fiscal year? Companies, want to like use up the budget, so there's lots of jobs that line up on short notice. Akane is like, what? What? Business outside the Rakugo world? I don't know what you're talking about. Akane is just... Essentially, he wants Maikero wants Akane to accompany him to work, and so he goes to a company, and they say, like, oh yes, we've got work for you here. Akane thinks to herself, like, he's taught me a story before, but he was imitating my dad's style, so I've never actually seen his Rakugo before. And she also thinks about how Isho is going to be the judge of the test. And how everyone has, thought very highly of him while she's been within Rakugo. But as she, sits down to watch Maikero perform, and he's, performing for, like some old folks, he is performing like song, and it was like, yay, 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 and eventually kind of like, why aren't you doing Rakugo? And he says, like, oh, like old people, they just want to have a good time. Sometimes they just want to relax and listen to a nice song, because Rakugo takes concentration and stuff. And we're not done. We got to go to our next appearance. He goes to, a crowd of kids, and he's juggling stuff with his umbrella while Akane is dressed in her Tanuki costume. They go to a business party, and he's performing on the shamisen and singing. And they get to the end of the day, and Akane realizes, like, he didn't do any Rakugo at all the whole day.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Yeah. So she, they relax. They go out for a drink, and she says, I mean, your promotion test coming up. Why didn't you perform? And Maikero says, yeah, I guess it was a good chance to practice my big story, but that's my problem to worry about. I've decided to choose what they want to see, not what I want to show. Yeah, it's a cool note.
Sure.
It could have been the whole explanation for what was going on there. It would have been nice. But he sends her home for the day. She's worried that he's not practicing for the big day, and Maikero goes to see Master Shigema, and he's like, "Hey, got you some fish." Good present. A lot of fish presents today.
Yeah,
actually.
like, hey, I found it for you.
Sushi coming up in Chainsaw Man too. A lot of fish. Shigema says, "And have you been patient?" And my character says, "Of course. I didn't even do any Rakugo today. But even knowing this is for the test, it's still quite stressful." And Shigema says, like, "Yeah, to think that you're that same saucy kid. You're saying those words." But my character says, "I'm not the same person I was back then, of course." And then he thinks about what Zensho said is with his confrontation. He thinks about Shinta, and then he gets a serious look on his face, and he just says, "I'm taking this quite seriously."
Yeah.
This chapter feels like it did a lot more to build up the tension of like, oh shit, he's taking on the promotion exam than the previous one did. When I, again, just kind of was like, oh, my character will be awesome, he'll be fine. But, you know, when you are reminded of the context of like, no one's ever done this.
Yeah, there's been a pretty significant break. No one's attempted it. And he is also the one attempting it from like kind of like the outlier school in the Arakawa family. So yeah, there's a lot of tension going into this.
Yeah, liked it.
Yeah, decent chapter. All right, Nick, are you ready to wrap this up?
I am.
We're gonna talk about One Piece. This is chapter 1113, Stalemate. We get a very cool two-page color spread of the Straw Hats as chess pieces.
Yep.
Chessboard's a little fucked up, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah, a bunch of little chopper pawns, and Brook as a bishop along with Usopp. Nami's the queen, and Robin is employing the weirdest strategy ever, which is to have an aggressor king.
I was like, is Nami supposed to be the king, and that's why Luffy is going out attacking as the queen? But it makes more sense with everyone else trying to fit to like the pieces that Nami would be the queen, and she is just an idiot who's like, king out here in the middle, please, don't mind me.
But a very cool visual, nonetheless.
Yeah. So we open at the start of, we open inside of Punk Records, where Mars is in there, and we hear the recording going basically, and saying, you know, that's going on while Mars is there, and he's looking up, and he says, "This is you, Vegapunk." And we see that there is an enormous sort of like fish tank, essentially, the Punk Records, where Vegapunk took off the top of his head, and it's just growing, essentially, in this giant tank. And that's probably the glub blub we heard before.
Yeah.
And he just, I don't know, he feels pithy in this moment. He's like, what is death exactly? Where do our ideas truly reside?
In there, in that head.
Right there. But whatever. He walks up, though, to the Undead Mushi that is playing off this recording, and we don't get to see what happens yet. We cut away to basically all the different areas of the One Piece world as they react to this. We cut over to Kaya, who is talking about Vegapunk's influence on the world. Characters are talking about things starting. We go over to Baltimore, not to be confused with Baltimore. There's a D here. Where they're all talking about like, oh yeah, our scientist here, he's the pride of Baltimore. And there's somebody who's like, oh, the one from the Nightmare of Baltimore? And someone says, no, that was Frankie, and he's a ship now. So everyone...
What a sentence.
Everyone's just gone along with what the fucking bounty posters show. Fuck, that's funny. We see like a bunch of other people just reacting to all this. Everyone, even Fulaled, where all the pirates are, everyone's kind of like, quiet down. Vegapunk is about to speak, and they're like, shut up. But it like even there, people are trying to take this sort of seriously, and they're like, all right, can you all hear me? Test. Hello, this is Vegapunk. Hello, world. And then
I stopped the transponder still.
Yeah, he steps on it, and the recording is going. And Mars is like, not only does he hide it, he fools us with decoys. Curse you, Vegapunk. So the message is going at this point. Everyone's like, yes, finally, we'll get to see what's going on. And Vegapunk or Mars is like, you know, going around like, I'm sorry, he's concocted a robust security system. I will have to figure this out. I don't know what he intends to say, but York has claimed that he has carried on O'Hara's research. And a conversation between the other Elder Stars is like, He refuses to go out like Clover then, does he? Does he mean to avenge O'Hara's loss? We cut over to Vegapunk's dead body, or dying body, whatever you want to say, as Sanji's carrying him, and he's like, I can hear it, the sound of Bonnie's voice begging for my help. So he rushes forward as Venus is about to attack her. Frankie was trying to protect her, but Sanji's like, hey, out of the way, Frankie. I'm the only one who gets to score points with Bonnie. Like, he just...
She's 12.
I don't think it... I am choosing not to read it that way. I'm choosing to read it that he's like, this is adorable little girl, and I want to be the big, cool hero. Whatever. I'm not going to think harder on it. But he does get a very cool line afterwards. The duality of Sanji exists in this moment, where he has a weird, creepy line, but then he has a very cool line where he goes, did you think the elderly were going to get special treatment? This is how pirates fight, as he kicked Venus with a flaming uppercut kick.
It's a very cool shot, because he ricochets off the sword to go straight up into his jaw.
Yeah.
It's neat.
Also,
he's still carrying Vegapunk the entire time he's doing this.
Yes, unfortunately, he gets bit by the horse part of Venus's transformation and drops Vegapunk during that. So there's a lot of things kind of going on at that moment. Atlas grabs Vegapunk, and Bonnie decides to do a distorted future to a giant-like future. She is a giant coming down on Venus as Vegapunk's message is continuing. He admits that he has committed 2 scenes. Therefore, whether he is arrested or executed, this message is set to go off when his heart stops beating. So people around the world are now reacting to the fact that they're like, wait, this means Vegapunk is dead? We cut over the notable ones, because there's like little cameos. We see Duval again for like the first time in what feels like 12 years. But the notable one is, oh gosh.
Caesar Clown.
Yeah, Caesar Clown and Judge, who are like, what the fuck? We were working to surpass you and you're fucking dead?
Fuck you!
Yeah. Also, big news, Morgan, who's just like, what the fuck? You're like, I was supposed to...
Don't give this away!
Yeah, I was supposed to sell this news story. So Vegapunk says, look, I want to make one thing very clear, that whoever has rendered judgment onto me, I am not trying to convince you that their intent is evil. I will not apply the labels of good and evil at all, in fact, because I understand too little about him to begin with. And Saturn hears that and is reacting Vegapunk. It is clear he is about to talk about Emu. He gets up to the top of the cloud, Saturn does, and he's like, move, I have no time to deal with the likes of you. But as he gets to the top, he sees Robin, and he's like, Robin, the woman that Akainu let slip between his fingers. That man is soft. And
I've heard this particular line, I've seen some people discussing what he means by this, because it's like,
Aokiji was the one.
Aokiji was the one who was supposed to go after her? So is there something we don't know about? Or does Saturn just not remember which admiral is which?
That would be very funny if he does not know which way. He's like, all of you humans look alike. It could be Joy Boy as well. Eerie Gray is bringing up. It could be Joy Boy he's referring to with him. But I assumed he was referring more to maybe him. I don't know. Akainu was at O'Hara. Oh, I mean, okay. So he's giving the grief to Akainu, who was the admiral, and not Aokiji, who I think was a captain at the time, who like actually let her escape. Okay.
Gotcha.
But Saturn sees this as a great opportunity, and Robin notices this and immediately calls to protect Robin.
Such a nice moment.
And all of the Straw Hats who are there immediately jump to her defense. As a reminder, Robin was hurt a very long time ago, so she's kind of injured at the moment. But yeah, all the Straw Hats. And this is kind of like the weakling crew at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're all jumping to her defense at the moment.
Yeah, the strongest person there is definitely Robin, and
yes,
she, like you said, is hurt. So the fact that all of them are leaping to her aid, it's so nice, and
they're Nakama.
It's like it's a moment that it's like, oh, you didn't really need something like this to happen, but in the midst of everything else that's going on, but it's like, oh god, he's after Robin, protect her. It's so sweet that the weakest one of them all is the one who's tackling her to safety.
Yeah. And I also love that Zeus is there. Like, he turns into a fucking mace.
I'm helping.
Yeah, I'm like, good for you. We continue Vegapunk's message where he says, what I am about to tell you is so preposterous you might even burst into laughter. Interesting. Laugh tail, laugh tail. Mars at this point is like, it's no use. There are too many transponder snails in the lab. It seems like there are no unique signals. York is like, come on, you have to think about this. You're about to lose your chance to become a celestial dragon. You're Vegapunk too. Where would you hide it? And the message continues that he says, however, you all have the right to know. To make a long story short, and there's like a conversation that happens between the elders where they're like, what happens if we destroy the power plant? And they're like, you can't. Like, the loss of all the ships and the surrounding like sailors on the island are fine.
We can afford that.
Yeah, that's fine. But we cannot lose the ability to create the mother flame. And Vegapunk says, the world, as we know it, will sink into the sea. And that is his first big revelation.
Yeah. One Piece isn't political, guys.
There's Nick, what's possibly political about this?
Just because there is a concerted effort to cover by the government to make people not be concerned about potentially world-ending cataclysms, so that they can stay in power, and just because they are trying to literally destroy and censor knowledge in order to execute that plan, this isn't political. It's not. So don't think it is. This is a crazy implication.
There's
what could
a
be going
lot
on here.
There's so much that I started to think about afterwards, and I've heard people talk about. There was somebody who was like, I always read that the reason the celestial dragons wear like fish tank helmets because they didn't want to breathe the same air as people. But what if it's also to get them used to that? Like, it seems like there is like a concerted effort to just like, what if we make sure we protect the ruling class so that they survive this ecological disaster we're slowly heading into? And
all this effort to subjugate fishmen, maybe
yes.
It's because we're going to have to join their territory and we need them to be under our thumb so that we don't have to share with them when we move down to their territory. Yeah,
they want to make sure they're still the ruling class at that point. It's there's so much. There's a lot of implications for this, but this is an amazing chapter.
Yeah, a lot going on in that, and even still with like all this stuff, all the fights happening, all these flashes over to like the different people. It's like, oh hey, look, a person that I know. Wait, what? Everything's gonna sink into the sea. What?
Yeah, I mean, Ninja is bringing up a point where they were noting that Alabaster shoreline is rising. We know Water 7 is sinking. Like, this has been, expected for a while. But this, I don't know why. Like, this just 2-page, 1.5-page spread, whatever you want to call it, of just the world as we know it's gonna sink into the sea. And they're like, hearing this might just make you erupt into laughter, and all I could think about was Roger reaching Raphdale, and he just started laughing at what he found. There's so much. This is great.
Yeah. All right. That is it for the manga this week. We went for quite a while because there was a lot to discuss. But Quinn, tell me, what was your favorite chapter this week?
So I know I just talked so much about how awesome this chapter of One Piece is, but it's Spy Family. Spy Family was so fucking cute and adorable, and this was 100% what I wanted from that series. It was amazing.
Yeah. You think I'm not gonna say the chapter that focuses on Mr. Henderson and Martha's relationship, and it's sweet and adorable and also heartbreaking? No, nothing else can possibly match that. There were a lot of good chapters this week, though.
Yeah.
My Hero Academia was good. One Piece was good. Undead Unluck was good. Frickin' Blue Box was good. Chainsaw Man was good. Green Greens was great. It was fantastic. And in an insane way, New Exorcist was a lot of fun, too. It was terrible, but I liked it.
Yeah. It was garbage, but it was my garbage.
But absolutely, it is 100% Spy Family.
Yeah, character of the week is really hard for me. I think my inclination is to say I'm torn between Vegapunk, but it's not really about Vegapunk. It's what he revealed that's interesting. So I think the answer is going to be Henderson then, who I really, really liked. I guess Henderson / Marth. I don't know if I could share it, but like both of those two characters rocketed up my interest level for them after this chapter.
Mine's going to be Nico from Undead Unluck. He got to have the big hero moments, and also I just love that, proclamation of like, I'm going to marry this one. Not, I'm going to marry Ichigo. I'm going to marry this one. What a weirdo. That, and also getting to have the big moment of uncovering the secret of how reincarnation works in this world, and what a big deal that is.
Yeah.
All good stuff. So much good manga this week.
Really, really good. Nick, this week you were the voice of the people, as Spy Family was the chapter of the week, and Nico from Undead Unluck was the character of the week.
Awesome. And that is going to do it for Weekly Manga Recap this week, everybody. We will have no chapters next week, as Quinn has previously said. There is a special Weekly Manga Recap Jeopardy that we will be playing, has been prepared by Ninja X3i, who also does all sorts of other stuff to help us keep track of things, and including audience votes on stuff, series that have been recommended to us, MVP and favorite series voting, all that good stuff. We also want to thank everyone who supports us on Patreon, patreon.com/Weekly Manga Recap, if you want to get even more Weekly Manga Recap content in addition to all of our podcast episodes. The audio versions are on weeklymangarecap.podbean.com. The video versions are on youtube.com/Weekly Manga Recap. And you can also find it in your podcast feeds on iTunes, Spotify, and that kind of stuff. And also, the video versions have occasional title cards by Steve Man. You can check out his artwork by just searching for Steve Man art all over the internet. And there's an opening sequence on the video version done by Malajack Stillis and Wensleydale Cheddar. Thank you guys for making that awesome thing for us. Guys, join the Discord channel for Weekly Manga Recap. It'll be linked wherever this podcast is posted. You can discuss stuff, the chapters as they come out. Use that to find the links to the Google Doc and the channel for when the stream goes live. We'll send out a notification when we start streaming. Usually it'll be around 7:30, 7:45-ish Eastern time, Wednesday evening. But if you check that out, you'll get a notification when the show goes live, and you can listen live as we go over stuff. Yep. Unedited and uncut. And that is just about everything. So... Yep. Thank you all for joining us. We'll have more manga to talk about soon.
Yep. Now, Nick, I do have to kill you after this episode because I told you this. I told you the secret of the crying ring, and I can't. I can't actually reveal that information to you. So I have other options. I could also take a drill to your brain and kind of scramble it a little bit. That'll knock that out. There will be some other side effects, but you can otherwise live.
Will I see you as having my face when you do that?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Just be careful not to let me drill a bigger hole in my own head when we do that.
I really can't guarantee your safety after this, but I'm going to tell you now, don't worry. I'll make sure you're okay.
People who have not been listening to Weekly Manga Recap since like the beginning have no idea what we're talking about.
Yeah, you guys don't remember Homunculus? What have you guys been doing? Although, weirdly, I saw that available to purchase in Barnes & Nobles recently.
Wow.
I was like,
crazy.
What a pull. Good for them. All right, that's it. Goodbye.